I've been a long player of this game and the community, and the one problem that I always had with this game is balance. What do I mean by balance? Well, I'm not referring to the game UI looking better or having more events that we can play or having a setting that turns off phone vibration when a dinosaur is near, although that's a really nice feature and I'm happy that they added that. No, I'm talking about the battles, the creatures, and the balancing. Even after such a long time, the battle arena or the PvP are still the main part of this game and what makes this game really good and enjoyable, at least for me. Maybe not for you. Unfortunately, this has some problems, but that's fine. I can't always have anything that I want. And that's why today I'm going to do just that. The reworking of the Jurassic World Alive PvP battles. I reworked every single creature in this game and made them balanced. So let's get started, and before we get into the huge list, as you can see right here, it's a really big list, I am gonna have to explain some information in order for you to better understand the changes that I made with the creatures and so on. If you want to skip this part where I'm explaining just some random stuff, you can skip it. If you only want to see what I've nerfed and what I've buffed, you can skip past this point that I'm gonna put in the video stamp or whatever. But I suggest you to watch through this explanation because it's gonna be really hard to understand. You do whatever, you can skip it if you want, I don't really care. So let's get started. With the 2.0 update, there has been like the biggest change to the PvP that has come ever to the game, and that is the introduction of resilient, cunning, and fierce abilities. How these three classes all work: a fierce creature is a creature that does a lot of damage through bleed or that can shatter through armor and pierce shield. That's what fierce does, and fierce counters a resilient. Resilients are, you know, creatures that have a lot of health, have a lot of armor, and can slow down opponents and can make opponents vulnerable, which basically means that they take way more damage. And all of these abilities help the resilient to counter the cunning. Cunning are most likely fast creatures that can distract the attack of a certain dinosaur, for example fierce, because that's basically what they're meant to do. Cunning creatures are just a counter to fierce creatures, because fierce creatures do a lot of damage and cunning creatures nullify that damage, and resilient creatures can cleanse the distraction that cunning creatures do. So you've basically got resilient beats cunning, cunning beats fierce, and fierce beats resilient. A rock, paper, scissors kind of mechanic. So this is basically like what the update was trying to do, and it didn't really succeed, to be honest, because all of the creatures are just all over the place. Like sometimes you have a resilient that beats a fierce creature, which shouldn't be the case, and otherwise you have a creature that absolutely beats everyone and you can't counter it unless you have two dinosaurs that are also really powerful and you have to use them together in order to counter that creature. It's just all over the place at the moment. So let's get into some rules that I have implemented into this balancing thing that I did right here. So first of all, we have fierce, resilient, cunning, resistances, immunities, and weaknesses. So let's start off with fierce creatures. So fierce creatures, as you have heard, they have to counter resilience. And what does a resilient do? Well, it does vulnerability and speed decrease, and because of that, fierce creatures are immune to vulnerability and speed decrease. What does immunity mean? It basically means that a creature is 100% immune, which means that it cannot get affected by vulnerability or speed decrease. It cannot get affected by a specific effect or whatever it is. In this situation, it's a vulnerability. We go down to possible resistances. Now, possible resistances are resistances that some fierce creatures can have, but they don't need to have them in order to be able to kill a resilient. and those are swap prevention, rending, damage over time, taunting, and stun. With taunting, it's kind of weird because taunting is just like a raid ability. It doesn't get used in like a PvP battle, but whatever. And now we go to the weaknesses. So basically weaknesses, as it says, it's something that a first creature cannot be immune or resistant to, which that includes distraction, critical reduction, evasion, and cunning, of course. Now we get down to resilience. So resilience have to counter cunning, therefore they are immune to distraction and crit reduction. And now we have some possible resistances, and the possible resistances are taunting, stunning, speed decrease, and vulnerability. And now we go down to weaknesses, which is damage over time, which is bleed, rending, and swap prevention, and of course a fierce creature. So a cunning creature, it's immune to, of course, damage over time, swap prevention, and it has some possible resistances to distraction, critical reduction, rending, and stunning. And weaknesses to, of course, speed decrease, vulnerability, precision, which means that it can go through dodge, and resilient, which of course it just makes sense, right? So I hope you guys understood all of this. Now we get down to a bit of a complicated scenario, because now we have to talk about hybrids. The resistances and the weaknesses of a hybrid, it kind of depends on what hybrid it is. Just to name a few, right here we have a fierce and resilient hybrid, which is 50% resilient and 50% fierce. And the immunity that a creature like this has is the immunity to vulnerability and speed decrease. And the possible resistances are distraction, critical reduction, and taunt and stun. And of course the weaknesses are damage over time, rending, and swap prevention. What beats a fierce resilient? Well, obviously a cunning fierce. This is what beats a resilient fierce, a cunning fierce. So what does a cunning fierce have as immunities? Damage over time, swap prevention, resistances, speed decrease, vulnerability, rending, taunt, and stun. Weaknesses, distraction, critical reduction, precision. And now what counters a cunning fierce? Obviously a cunning resilient counters a cunning fierce. So a cunning resilient has immunity to distraction, critical reduction, the resistances of swap prevention, damage over time, stun and taunt, weaknesses to vulnerabilities, speed decrease, rending, and of course a fierce resilient. So now we get to wild cards, which are a bit of a weird mix. Basically what a wild card is that so a wildcard cannot be immune to any of those abilities like speed decrease, distraction, DOT. They cannot be fully immune to them. They can cleanse it, but the thing is with wildcards is that they have a possibility to be resistant to every effect, but not 100%. So basically means that every wildcard should be able to get a 75% resistance to, let's say, distraction, but they cannot have 100% resistance to distraction. However, they can still possess abilities that can cleanse distraction or that can cleanse bleed or whatever. And that's basically all there is to show. So now that we've got that out of the way, I know it was a bit too long, but I kind of had to explain it so it makes more sense and I don't have to keep on stopping and having to explain everything. It's just gonna be easier for me. So let's finally begin. So the first dinosaur on our list is Allosaurus. As you can see, there are two versions of Allosaurus here. On the left side is the current version of the Allosaurus that with the current stats, with the current abilities and all of that stuff. And in the middle is my version of the Allosaurus, the one that I made, and I either buffed it or nerfed it or whatever. And on the right, it's are just like the biggest changes that I made to the dinosaur, so you can understand better, so I don't have to talk every single time. Here we go. We start with the health. I did change Allosaurus's health to 4200. As well as the damage also got nerfed with 200 points. But however, the speed, he is faster this time, as you can see, 4 points faster, that will definitely help him in some situations. That will definitely help him. That speed boost, that will definitely help him, and it's not like it's gonna make him overpowered. So now we get to the abilities, and I did a change, as you can see right here. So now fierce abilities, like the one problem that I always had with fierce abilities is that they were too similar to a normal defense shattering ability, because a defense shattering ability basically does the exact same stuff that a fierce strike does, but a fierce strike cleanses vulnerability. Like, there isn't much of a difference between that, and I wanted to make fierce strike a little bit more unique, if you get what I mean. So I gave the fierce abilities a 15% damage increase for 2 turns and only 1 attack. However, this increase, it's like the roar ability of Mortem Rex, where the damage increase only applies after you did the attack. So only after you did the attack, you get the damage increase. And then the next time you attack, you will have more damage than you used to have. Which I think it's pretty good, because like, this is what a fierce creature is all about. A fierce creature is all about doing damage. And I think like this is the best option for an updated version of a fierce strike, because I could probably, instead of increased damage, I could probably replace it with maybe like a bleed, damage over time, or maybe with a critical increase, with a critical chance increase. But I think the damage increase is the best option here. So, and also because Allosaurus is a fierce, as you can see, it also gets the reducing speed immunity, so he now can no longer be slowed down, which is really good, especially with the speed buff that he got. He will definitely be able to take out more resilience than he used to do. So I'm really happy about that change. Now we get to Amphibian, another fierce. He got more health, as you can see, and not really much change. I guess the one thing that changed is that the Amphibian now has a gashing wound, so now he can bleed instead of going for a fierce impact. I got rid of the group cleansing strike and I went for a pinning strike. So, you know, pinning strike might not be as good as the group cleansing strike. You're right, but it makes more sense for a fierce to have a cleansing, to have a pinning strike. Like, I'm not saying that a fierce creature cannot have a cleansing strike. I'm just saying, you know. And also he has the immunity to vulnerability now, as you can see, because he doesn't have. If we take a look back at Allosaurus, you remember how I said that every fierce creature in this case has to be immune to speed and vulnerability. Well, this is the case with Amphibian, but you'll notice with Allosaurus this is not really the case, and that's because Allosaurus has a fierce strike which cleanses vulnerability. And if I made Allosaurus, if I made every fierce creature immune to vulnerability, then the cleansing of vulnerability from a fierce strike will be kind of pointless. So, you know, if for example, maybe this is a much easier example to understand. If for example Allosaurus had a normal defense shattering strike or a normal defense shattering impact, it didn't have any fierce abilities or like any abilities that cleanses vulnerability, then Allosaurus, he would have 100% immunity to vulnerability. But because he has a fierce impact, he only has a resistance to vulnerability, as you can see right here. And this is just so I don't make a first strike useless, you know, just so a first strike can actually do something against the effect, against vulnerability, I guess you can say. So yeah, let's go back to Ankylosaurus Gen 2. Why did I say go back? So Ankylosaurus Gen 2, resilient this time. Nothing really interesting changed. I did nerf its speed by a little bit, as you can see. And I also gave it a counter. And the only reason I gave it a counter is just to help him counter some cunnings, because I did some testing. And you know, sometimes Ankylosaurus won't be able to beat cunning, and that's why I gave it a medium counter attack. So yeah, and for resistances, I went and changed the vulnerability resistance to a 75% resistance instead of a 100%, because remember, only first creatures can be fully immune to vulnerability. So, and also I added some distraction resistance just in case, you know, just in case he doesn't do enough damage. It's not a big resistance, but I think it's better than nothing. And this is also if he didn't have superior vulnerability and he had something that didn't cleanse distraction, then he would have immunity to distraction, but because he has an ability that cleanses that specific debuff, then I only give it a resistance. This is the same logic that I applied to Allosaurus with the vulnerability resistance and all of that good stuff. And also I added a crit reduction, so resilience are you can no longer nullify the critical chance of a resilient. So a resilient will always have the chance to get a critical hit, which makes more damage, obviously. So yeah. And now we get to Apatosaurus, another resilient. Again, didn't really change much. I guess now it has only 1000 attack, but I did this. I reworked Apatosaurus before the 2.14 update came, and when the 2.14 update came, they buffed Apatosaurus with the attack, and also with the it now has a group decelerating impact instead of a strike. So you know, whatever. It's not a big change whatsoever. So I honestly don't really care if it has like 1000 damage instead of 1100 damage. So it's not a big deal. So yeah, this is Apatosaurus, and obviously it has the critical reduction like every other resilient. So Archaeotherium, also kinda like Apatosaurus, he also got a buff. But yeah, it's not like it didn't really help him much, but I mean, I guess it's a buff, so whatever. So I just had to change him again. So 4650 HP for something that's smaller than a Utahraptor. It makes absolutely no sense why they gave him so much damage. I mean, sure, it's a game, it doesn't have to be realistic, but at the same time you can kind of be honest, and you can kind of see how this is a little bit weird. It doesn't really make sense how it has more health than a T-Rex. That doesn't really make sense. Even though it's a game, again, there should be, with every game I feel like there should be a little bit of realism in it, but not 100%. So I just nerfed that HP, as you can see right here, and then I gave it a lot of damage, because this is what a first creature is all about. It's about just doing damage, and Archaeotherium didn't have that for whatever reason. So I just gave it damage. As you can see, 600 plus damage. It's a lot of damage. And also I did nerf its speed a little bit, but the only reason, as you can see right here, the only reason I decreased its speed is that it will cause a lot of problems with some cannings. He will become faster than some cannings, and that wouldn't really be fair, because he will be able to counter cannings, and that's not what we want with a first creature. So we just had to nerf its speed a little bit. It kind of sucks, but I kind of have to do. I did. It was like I kind of need to do it. You know, I just have to follow the rules, I guess. And even though I nerfed its health a little bit, I did give him a little bit of more armor, and also the critical chance, it's back to 30%. I think when he first came out, I think Archaeotherium had like 40% critical chance, but for some reason they decided to keep nerfing that until it got to 20% critical chance, which is weird. I'm not sure why, but okay. So we get down to the moveset, and I replaced the group defense shattering strike with a first strike. Which this is obviously the new version of first strike, not the current one which exists. You can see right here from the photo. And also I added the persistent counter. This will further help him counter resilience. He will still get obliterated by almost, like, I'm pretty sure literally even the weakest canning will be able to obliterate Archaeotherium, just because that's, you know, it just makes sense. So yeah, it's really powerful against resilience, but obviously when it comes down to cannings, he will just die, because he won't be able to do anything against them. So and then vulnerability, it got decreased to a 75% because he got a first strike, and he can cleanse it. It even says here, so now there is a point in having a first ability, because as I said with Allosaurus, if you are immune to vulnerability, then there wouldn't really be a point to a first strike. I mean, yes, you will get the damage increase, but you won't be able to cleanse anything, you know, because you don't get affected by it. So, you know, whatever. Let's go down to Brontotherium now. Resilient. So Brontotherium didn't really change much. I mean, it got some resistances and some immunities that a resilient has to have, but apart from that, nothing much. The speed is a little bit lower, and the health is also a little bit lower, but he should still be able to counter almost any canning, as long as it's not like an apex canning or whatever. So, and talking about canning, we have our first canning of the day. Colerosaurus or whatever. I'm so terrible with these names, I'm sorry. This little guy got a huge, I guess you can say it's a huge, compared to its normal health. It got a nerf in its health. But if you think about it, it doesn't really matter, because this creature has a flux, so it can just absorb any damage that's thrown at him, unless it's like a group damage. But so it is, this is it. And I also did, like, I did a little bit of a mistake when I was reworking with this, when I created these new versions. As you can see right here, I got a distracting strike, and next to distracting strike it says new. Normally I put the new word next to the name of an ability when it's a new ability that doesn't exist, or it's changed. But this time, for some reason, I don't know why, for some reason I thought that distraction, that this ability does no longer exist, and I just wanted to make a strike version of that. So yeah, but then I remember that it actually exists and that it's useless. So as it says right here, just ignore when you see distracting strike, just ignore it, because it's basically the same as a distraction, but it has a different name. So it's basically the same ability. Just ignore it from now on. And I also added the bleed immunity to him, because he is a cunning after all. So Dinoceros, another dinosaur. One problem that I always had with Dinoceros is that it was really weak when it comes to the health. You can even see here that I buffed its health to 4020 HP, which is a huge amount. And as you can see right below, it says that it's actually a really big dinosaur. Like, if you don't know, Dinosaurus, it's almost as big as like an Allosaurus or like even like a T-Rex. It's really big, and I didn't really understand why they gave it so little HP. It doesn't really make sense. So, you know, I just had to buff its HP up. But in return of buffing its HP up, I had to nerf its speed and its damage as well, just so it's not broken, so it's not too overpowered, I guess you can say. And also, he didn't really have any he didn't really have any ability that made him look like a cunning. He had minimal speed up strike, which I guess you can say it's kinda cunning, but it's not enough. So I added, as you can see, a group accelerating cunning strike. Something that Gorgotrebax actually has. So now it can actually do stuff that a cunning does, like distraction, for example, and also cleansing damage over time, as you can see right here. And I also added a swap prevention, just like every other cunning. Deinonychus, something big with Deinonychus. It's not really about Deinonychus, but about evasive strike. So now evasive strike has a 100% chance to dodge 66.7, basically 67% of damage for 1/3, only one attack. And this also applies to the impact and the rampage version of the evasive strike. So the reason why I decided to make evasive strike better, basically, it's because evasive strike is one of those abilities that you will never use unless you have to. Like, if for example if you were to choose between an evasive strike and a distraction, you will definitely choose a distraction, just because distraction, it has 100% chance to distract the opponent. I mean, unless it's immune to distraction, which in that case, you know, it's whatever. But evasive strike, it's like you don't get a one. You don't really, you risk getting a dodge. You put a lot of risk into evasive strike, and even though it says it's 75% chance to dodge a certain amount of damage, most of the times when you use an ability like this, it feels like it's 50% instead of 75%. I'm pretty sure you guys can agree with me when I'm saying that evasive strike is just a really bad ability. So I just wanted it to make it better. So I just increased the chance to 100%. So now it's guaranteed that you will dodge an attack. And obviously this can be countered by every resilient. So, you know, if you have anything with precise, with dodge removal, or even with shields, like you're gonna win against every cunning. It's not like this change makes the evasive strike powerful, it just gives it a little bit of more edge in the meta, I guess you can say. So here it is, Deinonychus. Yeah, that's basically like the biggest change. And of course it has those two immunities that every cunning should have. And now we get down to Dimetrodon Gen 2, the weaker version of Dimetrodon. So with Dimetrodon, the biggest change is that now it has way less HP than it used to have, and that is again because, like, Dimetrodon, it's not that big. It's not big enough to justify its health, its 4,500 health. It's not that big. So I just had to, you know, make it smaller. And now also you'll notice that it no longer has armor piercing rampage, and instead it gets a critical impact. And that's because I don't want him to be worse. The reason is because he doesn't really have any good third one damage, and as you can read right here, it falls behind other fierce creatures, and also because of that, because it has an armor piercing rampage, sometimes it can't counter certain resilience. And that's also why I added a critical impact, so he has more chances of, you know, killing a resilient basically. So that's basically the biggest change. The other change is obviously I nullified the bleed immunity to a resistance of 34%. Just because he's not a cunning, like he doesn't need to be immune to damage over time, you know. So yeah, no, it just made sense to nerf it a little bit. So Dimorphodon, okay, this is the interesting one. So you'll notice that, well, first of all, you'll notice that it has now a flock. Dimorphodon has a flock now. It's only a flock of 3, and that's because Dimorphodon, it's a really small dinosaur, and when the flock creatures were first introduced into the game, an idea came to mind that maybe in the future every dinosaur that it's really small, like it's like below 1 meter long, should have a flock, because it just makes sense for such a small creature to have a flock. And this is kind of what I felt with Dimorphodon as well. Now obviously I'm not a freaking biologist, I am not an expert to say that yes, back in the Triassic period or whatever, the Dimorphodon used to hunt in flocks or whatever. Like I just want to think of it logically. And yeah, basically small creatures equals flock of 3 or maybe 2, it kind of depends. So we get down to his health, which is now I guess 1,000 for each of them, so it's 3,000. It just felt wrong to have a dinosaur with 500 damage. It just something felt wrong here. So as you can see, I upgraded it to 900 damage. So it's nothing too crazy, but at least it's better than 500 damage. Like that's just mean. Like, why would you give it so much damage? Like if you give it 500 damage, might as well just give it like 1 damage, because it's literally gonna be the same. And also because Dimorphodon is also a flock now, I also wanted to, you know, to have an alert ability. So I added an alert pinning strike. As you can see, it locks down the target for 2 turns. It attacks only 1 time, but when it goes down to 66% of the HP or 2 flock creatures remaining, it increases the critical chance by 30% for 2 turns to attacks. So it basically turns into like a critical strike, I guess. So yeah, and obviously because it's a fierce, I just added some resistances and some immunities that made sense for a fierce creature. Now let's go down to Diplocaulus, and it's another flock creature, but this time it's a cunning. And also Diplocaulus, if you guys don't know about Diplocaulus, it's actually smaller than Dimorphodon, so Diplocaulus definitely needs a flock, like no doubt. I think it's long as my hand, which is not even that long, it's really small. So yeah, health got reduced, but it got a flock now, so it can absorb a lot of damage now. I mean, unless again, if it's a group damage. The damage, it had way too much damage. Like, I'm honestly shocked how anyone thought that this damage was enough. Maybe it made sense back then, but right now it doesn't really make sense why it has so much damage. So I just had to nerf that to something respectable, like 1,300 damage, and it now gets a distracting strike or a distraction, basically the same, and an alert debilitating strike. So reduces damage for 75%. This is basically a debilitating distraction, like a normal debilitating distraction, but now when it gets threatened, it now also reduces the critical chance by 50% for 2 turns for attacks, as well as the damage by 100%. So this is definitely gonna be a really powerful ability against any fierce creature ever. So a fierce creature wouldn't be able to do anything against Diplocaulus, which is you know, what it should happen. And of course it got the immunity to swap prevention, bleed, and a little bit of a resistance to distraction. Just because he is not a resilient and he doesn't need to be immune to distraction. Okay, we go now to Dilophosaurus Gen 2, another cunning. Okay, so Dilo Gen 2. Like I am, this basically tells me all there is to know about Dilo Gen 2. Like I don't understand who, like I think there was someone drunk when they reworked the stats for Dilophosaurus Gen 2, because no one in their right mind will think that this is a good idea. Literally no one. So yeah, I just had to change that, and also I gave it more HP, you know, less damage, but it has more HP. Also, its speed, it's a little bit faster, because after all, it's a cunning, he should be fast. Added some bleed resistance, because again, it has a cunning strike, so he can still cleanse the bleed. And it still keeps the impact, and now it has a swap prevention, so you can swap it out if there's a problem that you're encountering. And it still keeps like 75% resistance to distraction. Okay, let's go down to Dracoceratops. Okay, so Dracorex Gen 2. This is an interesting one. Like Dracorex Gen 2 has to be one of the weirdest creatures in the game, because when you think of Dracorex Gen 2 and you see this picture, you instantly think of Dracorex, the normal Dracorex, and you know that the normal Dracorex is a resilient. Why is this a fierce? Like like again, I know it doesn't matter. It's a game. They can do whatever they want. It doesn't matter. But like I don't know. You have to admit that this is a little bit ridiculous. Like it kind of, like, honestly, it makes more sense for a Titanoboa to be a fierce creature than a Dracorex. Just because Titanoboa looks more fierce, looks like he's able to do, like, you know, something that a fierce will do instead of a Dracorex. You know, I don't know. I personally find it weird, so I just had to change it to a resilient, as you can see. So it got the change in HP, the damage, the speed. It got a huge change in speed, so now it's not as slow. It can actually like counter some cunnings, you know. Not that it really matters, because it has a decelerating strike and cunnings will already be slower with that deceleration, but whatever. So added a decelerating resilience strike, which is a new ability that I made. I think this used to be an ability, but it was removed. I think, I'm not too sure actually. But now it also has a precise impact, so it helps. So now you can go through dodge if you fight against a cunning. And also it has something new that I made. On escape headbutt, which is basically on escape headbutt is basically like obstruction, stunning obstruction that Forus Rex has, but instead of 1 times damage, it only does 0.5 times damage, and it also bypasses armor, as you can see right there, which the normal stunning obstruction doesn't bypass armor. It's basically just a weaker version of the stunning obstruction. That's basically what it is. And obviously it gets all of the distraction and critical reduction immunity that it needs, because it's a resilient. And now we go down to Einiosaurus. So Einiosaurus, it's a weird one. Like when you look at this moveset, it's really strange, its moveset, because the Einiosaurus, it's one of these dinosaurs that's made to swap in with the stunning strike and then go for a heal and then swap out. That's basically the whole point of an Einiosaurus. But here I gave it to how do I say this? I gave it a little bit more chance to defend itself. As you can see right here, now it has a shielding strike, so it can now defend itself against cunnings that will do a lot of damage against it. So it also has a health buff, damage increase, and a speed decrease, but it all honesty it doesn't really matter. I added the shielding strike as so now it's able to defend itself better, and also I changed the swapping stunning strike. So this is the new version of stunning strike, right? Stunning strike now it doesn't pierce, it doesn't bypass armor anymore. And the reason why I decided to do this, it's mostly because of how many creatures now have a swapping stunning strike, and there isn't really a lot to defend. Like, you can't really defend against a swapping stunning strike. You can only defend it against distraction, but that, you know, if you have to be really lucky to defend it against distraction. And also you can defend it with the shield, I guess. But those are like the only two options. I guess evasion is another option, but evasion is not that relevant nowadays, so that's not really a good option. So yeah, I just had to give creatures another way to counter the swapping stunning strike, because let's be honest, swapping stunning strike, it's really annoying. It's one of the most annoying abilities in the game. So yeah, and also I added some distraction and crit reduction immunities. Okay, now with Eremotherium. With Eremotherium, I basically did the same thing that I did with Dinocereus. So Eremotherium is still like really big. It's almost the same size as a Dinocereus, and that's also why I buffed its HP. But because I buffed its HP, it just seemed normal to also nullify a little bit of its damage, because otherwise it will be a little bit too powerful, you know. And apart from that, nothing really. I mean, obviously it has the immunities and the resistances for a cunning, and I also removed the speed immunity just because like it doesn't make any sense for a cunning to have that. So yeah, I just had to remove it. But even with the immunity, it still was useless, because, you know, he still will be really slow. So, you know, whatever. Let's go down to Eupocephalus. Nothing much here. Again, I got to the resistances that Eupocephalus needs in order to be a good resilient. Nothing much. Gallimimus, it got the new version of Evasive Strike, and it also has some the immunity to bleed, which he didn't have. So now Gallimimus will definitely be good against a lot of common and even some rare fierce creatures. Okay, and he also got the a health buff. Okay, we get now to Glyptodon. Glyptodon, where do I start? So, health, it got nerfed. Damage, it did also get nerfed a little bit. Armor, it got buffed a little bit. And now he has a resilient strike and an impact. He should still be able to counter almost every common cunning, so there is no, like, don't worry if you are a Glyptodon lover. Don't worry, Glyptodon, it's still gonna be able to counter what it needs to counter, so don't worry about that. And also I added a critical reduction like every other resilient, and I had to nerf down the speed and the vulnerability resistances to 50%, and also I added the distraction resistance to 50%. But honestly, it doesn't really matter, because as you can see right here, every one of these abilities cleanses distraction, so there's literally no point in having a distraction. But I mean, I guess it's better than nothing, you know. Like, who knows, maybe in the future I will give it a counter attack, and maybe he will need that distraction resistance, so, you know, who knows. But anyway, so Hatzegopteryx, nothing really much. Again, the same story with every resilient. I'm gonna have to kind of skip over some of these that haven't changed much, just because I can't sit here for 10,000 hours just to keep explaining like the same stuff over and over again. Okay, so Iguanodon, it got a health buff, some decent damage buff. what does it have? Added a cleansing strike instead of a group cleansing strike. It's basically the same, but a group cleansing strike will be, it's useful in raids because it cleanses everyone of your team. But in all honesty, I'm pretty sure there is no single soul who has played this game and has used an iguanodon in a tournament, or sorry, in a like a raid battle. Because I mean, sure, like I guess I could have let it with the group cleansing strike, but I don't know. I just feel like who is ever gonna use iguanodon in a raid, you know, unless it's a raid, unless it's a it's like a epic or maybe like a rare raid. But even then, you got better options like Edmontoguanodon, Bajatonodon, and you just have better options. So you know, it just feels kind of useless. Like it doesn't really matter. Again, it's just a strike. It doesn't really affect the PvP. It only affects the raids. So yeah, whatever. It doesn't really matter. And as you can see, I also added a new ability, Alert Stunning Impact. I kind of miss when all the Hedrosaurus used to have a stunning ability. Now that's not the case anymore, which is unfortunate because I kind of miss those times. But yeah, this is basically what it says. It's like a normal stunning impact, but when it gets down to 50% HP, it turns into a cleansing heal ability, basically, as you can see right here. Yeah, it's not the best ability. I could have probably come up with something better, but you know, it's fine. I guess this ability helps him a little bit with some matchups with cunning creatures. So you know, I guess there is no other way to see it apart from it being a good thing because it helps him with some cunning matchups. Because you know, like I could have probably added a counter, but I don't know. I felt like it didn't really need a counter, but you know, whatever. Let's just go down to the next one. Inostransivia health got reduced, but it has more damage now. Speed, it also got a little bit reduced, and I know some of you people might be mad at me for doing this, but I honestly do not care. And also got a critical increase, so you know, that's good, I guess. Added a bleed, immunity, swap prevention, critical reduction, and distraction got changed, but they still have resistances, just not 100%. So yeah, and yes, he is gonna be able to counter Irritator Gen 2. Okay, Irritator. So, Irritator. It's really, this dinosaur is really irritating. So, damage got buffed by a lot, as you can see. Speed, I feel like he was way too speedy for a fierce creature. Like I don't mind having fast fierce creatures, but you have to, like, you know, it seemed a little bit ridiculous how fast he was, you know. So I just nerfed that and added a persistent ferocious strike instead of a normal ferocious strike, and that's just because but if you think about it, a persistent ferocious strike is way better than a ferocious strike, just because it has no cooldown. And it still applies 50% of damage increase. Sure, it doesn't last for 3 turns, 6 attacks, but it still lasts for 2 attacks, 2 turns, which is still enough. So yeah, it's honestly a better version of a ferocious strike. And also I removed the swap indefinite strike, just because swap indefinite strike removed dodge and cloak, and that didn't really make sense for a fierce creature to be able to do that, so I just had to remove it, obviously. So Litronax, oh, the meme dinosaur, the legend Litronax. So Litronax got changed into a fierce creature just because this is the same situation with Dracorex. It just when you see something like this, you instantly think of a fierce creature. You don't think of a resilient creature, but for some reason it is a resilient creature, which Okay, I guess. So yeah, now that he's a first creature, I just had to upgrade everything, basically. As you can see, everything about him got changed. So the health got changed, damage got changed, the speed also got changed, a critical changed, the class got changed. It now has the new first strike, armor piercing impact, a defense shattering counter, and of course some resistances to help him a little bit, well, actually to help him a lot against resilience. And also added just a bleed, just a small resistance to bleed. It's only 25%, it's nothing too crazy. You know, I don't know, I just felt like it was right to give him something like that. I don't know, I don't know. I don't know why I give him that, to be honest, but I mean, he's Letronax, he kinda deserves it. So, let's go down to Majungasaurus, which is kinda similar to Letronax, but I guess Majungasaurus, it's more, it has more damage potential just because he has like a swapping ferocity and also has an extended critical strike, which you will notice that it's a new version of the extended critical strike just because the old version was kind of bad, so I made it a little bit better. And also it has the new first strike, it has more health, it has way more damage than Litronax actually. It's actually also faster, and obviously it got changed from a fierce resilient to a pure fierce, to a pure fierce. Mirror Gaia got a health buff, a speed nerf because I just had to nerf its speed just because he would introduce some problems when he would face up against fierce creature. I just kind of had to nerf its speed a little bit so it's not powerful against fierce creatures. And obviously got the two immunities that every resilient needs. Monolophosaurus Gen 2, I guess it's like a better version of Dilophosaurus. So yeah, a health buff, distracting impact. Now this is also interesting. A distracting impact now has one cooldown instead of only two cooldowns. And I also noted right down here that if a shattering impact and a decelerating impact can have a cooldown of 1, then why not distracting impact? Like, this is something that bothers me to this day. Like, I don't understand why distracting impact has two cooldowns when you have abilities like decelerating impact, which is a decelerating impact. It's basically the same as a distracting impact, but instead of distraction, it reduces the speed. Had only one cooldown, and also the defense shattering impact also only had one cooldown. Okay, so now we have Nandasuchus, and Nandasuchus, I don't know how to think about this dinosaur. It's definitely a really interesting dinosaur. I really liked him. When I first started playing the game, I really liked using him because he was fast. He did a lot of damage with the ferocious strike, and yeah, he was just overall a really decent. It's like a really good starter dinosaur. It helps you get started with the game. So let's buff him a little bit because I did buff him a little bit, as you can see. So his health got increased. His damage got just a little bit nerfed, and also his speed as well, because, you know, 128 speed is like a little bit too close to like 129 speed, and most cunnings are above or around that speed. So, you know, I just felt like I had to decrease the speed a little bit. And he also got the ferocious strike replaced with a defense shattering impact. That's basically it with Nandasuchus. Vulnerability also got increased to 100%. So let's go down to Ophiocodon. Okay. So Ophiocodon, his HP has been nerfed, as you can see. His damage has been buffed a little bit, just because, you know, so it gets something in return of the nerf, of the HP nerf. And the biggest change that he has is that he no longer has an armor piercing rampage. And as it says right here, this is the same situation with Dimetrodon Gen 2. Now, sure, he lost a rampage, he lost more damage output, but he gets a better turn 1 ability, so he can, like, you can use an armor piercing rampage turn 1. And because of that, it introduces some problems with some resilience, and some resilience will beat him, and that's why I basically gave it an impact, just because this way it's more, he's able to do more stuff against resilient, you know. So yeah, here it is. And also I removed the bleed immunity just because it doesn't really make sense for a first. Okay, didn't really change much. I mean, of course he got the resistances of a resilient, and then I guess I guess I did change him a little bit. So yeah, now he's an actually good resilient, so now he can actually do stuff in the PvP. Because let's be honest, I'm pretty sure there's not a single soul that used both Parasaura or Iguanodon in a raid ever. Like, there is no way. Like, if you're gonna use one of these Hedrosaurs in a raid, just use like an epic, or like Edmonto Guanador or a legendary. Because, or even like a rare. So yeah, I just didn't find a purpose to have this kind of Parasaurolophus, so I just changed it to be more better in the PvP arena, because that's still like the main point of the game. It's not like the raids are like extra stuff that you can do in the game, but the main point or the main thing that you can do in the game is the PvP arena. So let's go down to Forus Rakos. His damage, he has a little bit too much damage for my likings, so I just had to nerf it a little bit. And also it got an evasive rampage, the new and improved evasive rampage, and that means that it no longer has ranking clause. But if you think about it, it doesn't really make sense why a cunning will have ranking clause. I'm not saying that a cunning can't nullify or pierce through dodge. They can, because either if they can or they cannot, it doesn't really affect their playstyle. They will still be beaten by resilience, they will still beat fierce creatures, but I don't know, Raking Claws, it's like, Raking Claws is basically just a worse version of a precise rampage. Like, that's basically what it is. And yeah, I just changed it with an evasive rampage and added a bleed immunity. For Purosaurus Gen 2, the weaker version of the normal Purosaurus. So yeah, again, a vulnerability, it doesn't really make sense now when the only dinosaurs that should be able to make to give you vulnerability are resilience or hybrids that are made out of resilience. So it didn't really make sense. I replaced it with a defense shattering strike, and also I gave it a little bit more damage. When I mean a little bit, it's quite a lot of damage, as you can see right here. Also a little bit more HP, and the speed got nerfed a little bit, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really affect him too much. And of course I added the resistances and the immunities of a fierce Sarcosuchus, kind of the same. Sarcosuchus is kind of similar to Purosaurus, but instead of a binding impact, he has a ferocious impact, which is better. I mean, it kind of depends on the situation, but yeah, a ferocious impact. I could have honestly let him have the little wound and only give him the defense shattering strike, but I don't know, it was too similar. He was too similar to Suchomimus, and I didn't really want that, so I just gave it a ferocious impact, just so it's more diverse. I also added a 50% stun resistance, you know, just it's better than nothing, I guess. So, Scolosaurus, okay, got the HP a little bit enough. Now it has a precise impact instead of a taunting rampage, and that's because, again, as I said with Ophiocodon and Dimetrodon Gen 2, adding the precise rampage to Scolosaurus will help him better for turn 1 damage. And Yeah, because taunting Rampage has a delay, and that doesn't really help him a lot. And of course you got all of the resistances and the immunities changed right here. And also I added a swap in invincibility. I actually forgot to say that right here. Yeah, he now has a swap in invincibility just to help him a little bit, I guess, in some situations. So let's go down to Sinosauropteryx. Damage got buffed by like 20% or something like that. Added alert pounds. Alert pounds. So this is okay. So this is interesting. Alert pounds, as it says right here. I feel like some creatures should be strong when they're all alive, given the fact that Sinosauropteryx has a flock. But once they start to, you know, dying one by one, they should become weaker. And this is what alert pounce is. When you have full HP, you can do alert pounce without a problem. But when it only gets down to one creature or 33% of your health, then it gets disabled. I wish there were more abilities like this in the game, because as far as I know, I think alert decoy is the only ability that lets you do that. Sure, it makes him a little bit weaker if you think about it. At the same time, you have to keep in mind that so many creatures got changed in this list that I'm doing right here, that it kinda got indirectly buffed at the same time. So it's a win-win situation, kinda. And not only that, he also gets immunities to bleed and strop prevention, and especially bleed will help him a lot. Okay, Stegosaurus. So Stegosaurus. I don't understand why they decide. Stegosaurus is basically just a worse version of Apatosaurus right now. So I don't like. I honestly don't even know why Stegosaurus exists anymore, because he's just like the worst common ever, one of the worst. But this is no longer the case. As you can see, he got a huge health buff. He got a little bit of damage buff. I think those stats, like especially the health and the damage, I think he used to have those stats before the 2.0 update, so it's not really a change if you think about it. The speed also got a little bit nerfed, just because I thought he was a little bit too fast for like something that's like, I'm pretty sure a Stegosaurus isn't fast at all. So yeah, like I'm pretty sure even my grandma can run faster than a Stegosaurus. And also, as you can see, I added the Tagomizer, which is a new ability, but also not a new ability, because this used to be an ability where it will, I think it had 3 cooldowns, and you would do an impact and you would apply a speed reduction for 50% for 3 turns, I think it was. However, this time it got a little bit of change, just because I had to make it a little bit different. I was originally gonna put bleed on Tagomizer, but that doesn't really make sense with how things are now, and you know, resilience shouldn't be able to bleed. So instead of bleed, the other option, the only option that I really have, is vulnerability. So what does this new ability does? It taunts yourself for 2 turns, 3 attacks. This will help you in raid battles, if you can find a strategy where that works. And also it reduces the speed for 75%. Yes, that's right, 75% for 2 turns. And also it does 1.5 times damage. There is also another version of this ability, which is basically a rampage, so it does 2 times damage. And of course, after you do the damage, you make the target vulnerable, only for 2 turns but for 1 attack. So, and not only that, he also got the resistances, as you can see right here. So yeah, Stegosaurus, I'm pretty happy about this change. I really miss when Stegosaurus was really good. I mean, for a common. But yeah, okay, very happy about that change. Stygimoloch. Okay, Stygimoloch, I had to nerf a little bit of the speed, because he will be faster than the Nundasuchus, and because he was faster than Nundasuchus, he will be able to beat him. So yeah, I just had to, you know, nerf his speed just by a little bit. Apart from that, it gets the resistances that it had, that the immunities, and also it gets a shield decelerating strike. So you now can decelerate the opponent if you need to. This will further help him counter Cunnings. Okay, Suchomimus. So Suchomimus, of course, it gets the new First Strike, the new version of the First Strike, and also it gets a new ability, but it's actually not a new ability. This ability actually used to exist, and as you can see, Pyroraptor used to have this ability, the Wounding Impact. I'm not sure if that's how it was called. I think that's how it was called, or it was like Wounding Attack. I'm not too sure anymore. But yeah, it's really weird to think that Pyroraptor used to have a bleed ability. It's really strange times. So yeah, it gets a wounding ability, which I don't know, like you do more damage, you don't do as much bleed damage as a little wound, for example. I mean, it kinda depends on the situation, I guess. So yeah, wounding damage you do more, like, you know, more pure damage when you do less damage over time damage, I guess. And yeah, with the little wound, it's kinda the opposite. That is Suchomimus. Tanicolagreus. So, Tanicolagreus, it's another weird creature, kinda like Dracorex Gen 2. So, as you can see, I changed his class from Wildcard to Cunning, and because of that, you will start seeing this with more and more non-hybrid creatures. But as you can read right here, I decided that every non-hybrid should be made of only one class, which means that every non-hybrid, except for apex creatures, are gonna be made of only one class. So that means that they can only be pure fierce, pure resilient, and pure cunning. And yeah, I was like, the reason I did this change is mostly just so it's not I don't know, just so it's easier for people to counter certain dinosaurs. But obviously some hybrids are gonna be made out of a lot of classes, out of different classes. But like, that's when it starts to get more complex, when it comes from a gameplay point. So you can start to having to realize that you have to upgrade your team, or you have to become better at the game in order to counter those different. So yeah, that's the reason why. And also the health also got increased by Tanicolagreus. Damage also got changed. Speed, I mean, basically everything about Tanicolagreus got changed, even the speed and the abilities and the immunities as well, as you can see right here. Okay, let's go Tarbosaurus. Okay, so with Tarbosaurus, you know how I said that Ophiacodon doesn't have good turn 1 damage? Well, Tarbosaurus now has the armor piercing rampage that Ophiacodon used to have, but the thing with Tarbosaurus is that for one, he can take more hits than Ophiacodon because it has way more HP, and also because Tarbosaurus has way more damage than Ophiacodon, and not only that, he can also buff its damage with 15%, which will, if you go for the first turn for a strike and then you go for a rampage, you will do a lot of damage. You will be able to kill anything basically in only 2 turns. So yeah, but not only that, I also changed its speed just so it's a little bit faster, and added a speed reduction just to help him a little bit against some sauropods or some really slow dinosaurs. Triceratops Gen 2, yeah, the health got a little bit increased, speed also got increased by a little bit. Obviously it has the new version of Stunning Strike, and I also added the crit reduction and the distraction resistance. Okay, Velociraptor. Okay, this is gonna be an interesting one. So there is one problem that I have with Velociraptor, and that is speed. As you may know by now, the new Prenodactylus hybrid has overtaken Velociraptor in speed. It has 133 speed, and not only that, there are also like Hastus Maximus, Gorgonops. There are some creatures that also have replaced Velociraptor when it comes to speed, because Velociraptor is no longer the fastest, and that's kind of like the one thing that I always liked about Velociraptor is that no matter what, unless it's heavily boosted, Velociraptor it's always gonna be first. No matter what you do, unless you have a priority ability, of course. And just like how Apatosaurus is the slowest creature in the game, Velociraptor should still be like the fastest creature in the game, and I don't understand why I think they just forgot about Velociraptor or something, because it kind of sucks to see Velociraptor not being the fastest creature anymore. So yeah, I changed its speed to 133 speed, and also yes, I know Prenodactylus also has the same speed, but I changed the spoilers alert. I also changed Prenodactylus speed to be lower. So Velociraptor right now it's definitely the fastest out of this list of dinosaurs. Okay, so you'll also notice that like I said, like I mentioned in when I talk about Dimorphodon, Velociraptor now has a flock. Because if you think about it, like Compsognathus and Velociraptor are like almost the same size. I think maybe Velociraptor is just a little bit bigger than Compsognathus, but let's be honest, they're pretty much the same size, and I just felt weird not having Velociraptor flock. I mean, obviously the thing is that if flocks weren't a thing, that I wouldn't give Velociraptor a flock, but now that flocks are a thing, I kind of feel obligated to give Velociraptor a flock. So yeah, now he has a flock. Maybe some of you disagree, or maybe some of you agree with me. I don't really care what your opinion is. So let's move on to the next dinosaur. So not only that, he also got the alert bounce, and also he got the bleed immunity, swap prevention immunity, and he got the distraction immunity transformed into a 50% resistance. Okay, so that is it with the common creatures. Now to rare creatures, and the first rare creature on our list is Albertosaurus. So I have some things that I have to say about Albertosaurus, and it's not really even about Albertosaurus, but about one certain ability, which I think you guessed it by now. The Killer Instinct is a little bit too powerful, alright? It's just like the reason behind the change of Killer Instinct is that the normal Killer Instinct does like pure damage. The new version of the Killer Instinct, as you can see right here, it does 50% rending damage, and the reason why that is important is that rending is a more cunning friendly effect, I guess you can say, than pure damage, because pure damage, sure, you can cunnings can distract it or can evade it, but when you deal with so much damage, it's even if it's just distracted, it's still gonna do a lot of damage. And most cunnings also have low health already, so 50% rending out of a cunning's 3000 HP won't be anything when you compare to like 6000 Apatosaurus. That won't be anything, literally nothing. And also if you add dodge and distraction on top of that, that will be probably less than 10% of its HP gone. So that's why I decided to change Killer Instinct. Just because it was too cunning, it was too unfriendly to cunnings. But this time, rending is more cunning friendly, and you know, you can kind of get what I'm trying to say. It's just I feel like it was a little mistake. So that is Alberto's house. Also, it got some changes, some minor changes to anything else. I removed the critical reduction from him because again he's a first. There is no reason why he would have that. So yeah, let's go down to Amargosaurus. So the first thing you'll notice with Amargosaurus is that I nerfed the hell out of his HP, and I have a good reason why I did that. And that is because if you don't know, Amargosaurus, it's small. It's like really small when you compare to other sauropods like him. It's really tiny. It's small. I think it's like the same size as an Allosaurus. And I never understood why it had so much health. And also I did nerf his damage a little bit, but he got a medium counter attack, which will buff up its damage a little bit more, even though he has less damage. And also I added a little bit of 15% to armor, or 50% armor, just so it helps him to absorb more damage. And he also got a new ability, which is Total Slowing Impact, which reduces the speed for 100% for 3 turns. So basically, unless your resistance like 75% or 100% to speed reduction, you're always gonna be slow if someone attacks you with this kind of ability. Then he got the medium counter, which I told you about, and he also got some resistances, distraction and crit reduction. And you might think that Margosaurus got to, you might think that he's crap now because he got such a big nerf, but he's still able to counter like almost any rare cunning that you throw at him. And yeah, so yeah, it might look crap, but when you actually try to use him in a battle, he's actually not that bad when it comes to cunnings, I guess. Angiosarcus, nothing really drastically changed. Immunity to vulnerability and a little bit of health increase replaced the first impact with a normal shattering impact, just because the new version of first impact has damage increase, and I didn't really feel like Angiosarcus needed that damage increase. He's already good enough, so yeah, I don't think he really needed that. So yeah, okay. Ooh, I first hybrid of the day. Okay. So, Ankylocodon. First resilient, which makes sense because it's Ophiocodon and also Ankylosaurus Gen 2. Let's see what I changed with him. So, I nerfed his HP by a lot, as you can see, but I also gave it 200 plus damage. The speed same, armor crit the same. I added a defense shattering strike instead of a resilient strike. However, I did add now because he no longer has a resilient strike and he can no longer cleanse damage reduction. I added a 50% reduction in damage resistance. He's no longer able to cleanse the damage reduction, but he's still able to resist it 50%, which is good. Also remove the bleed immunity, just because again, when you got an Ophiocodon and Ankylosaurus, it doesn't really make sense why they would have bleed immunity, because resilients are weak to bleed and fierce creatures can be resistant to bleed, but that's not necessary. So yeah, I just removed that and also gave it an armor piercing rampage. So yeah, it got more damage output. He's still able to counter what it needs to counter, so it's fine. Ramborgiania, the health got increased and distraction resistances added. Let's go to the next one. Okay, look at this. The health got a little bit decreased. The damage also got a little bit nerfed. And also alert buff and strike now cleanses, swap prevention and bleed. And now the reason why I decided to do this is because if you take a look at the normal alert buff and strike, you will notice that it cleanses speed decrease and also critical chance reduction, which I don't have that much problem against, but is that cleanse speed decrease that kind of bothers me. And like this ability would be fine if it was on something else, but because it's on Archaeopteryx, which is a cunning, like cunnings shouldn't be able to cleanse a speed decrease. Like that shouldn't be a thing. Now this is kind of where it gets complicated because I don't want to see an ability that cleanses speed reduction and that's on a cunning. Like that doesn't really make sense. If that ability was on a first creature, then I wouldn't have a problem. But if you're gonna make alert buff and strike and put it on a cunning and also give it a speed decrease cleansing, then why not just give it a normal cleansing strike, you know? Because they can have a normal cleansing strike. I don't have a problem with creatures having cleansing strike just because it cleanses speed only, and that's just like there's something not right there. There's something not right there. I just don't understand it. And of course it got the new version of the evasive impact. And it also has a new ability, which is alert cunning impact. So this is the same logic that I applied to alert pounce to Velociraptor and Sinosauropteryx, and that is because you know, when there are three cunnings together, they are strong together, but once they start dying, they get weaker and weaker. So this is the same logic applied to this ability, which if you reach 33% of your health, it turns into an instant cunning strike. Because as you can see right here, it has priority. And it's basically just a cunning strike with a priority. And also with no cooldown. So yeah. And also added a bleed resistance. Because why the hell not? And also the stats also got changed. The health got changed, the damage got changed, the speed is actually now way faster. Like, it kind of seems like I don't understand why they decide to make Arcturus as slow as they have him right now. Arcturus, it's like a distant relative of a bear, and bears are really, like, they are actually really fast. So it just didn't really make sense why they decided to give him such low speed, because like I don't know, I just don't understand it. Like most of the stuff in this game don't really make sense, but whatever. Also it has the new first strike now, so this is basically like I basically transformed Arcturus in a pure fierce now. I kind of had a little bit of a problem with Arcturus because I didn't want him, how do I say it? I didn't want to make him similar to other creatures, so I kind of had to, I don't know, to see what works. And this is the stuff that I got right here. So a new first strike, I already said that. It also now has a new version of the group ferocity strike because as you know, a group ferocity strike has 3 cooldowns and increases the damage only for 2 turns and for 2 attacks, which is really bad. But this new version only has 2 cooldowns and it increases the damage for 2 turns but for 3 attacks instead of only 2 attacks. So this way you have an extra attack where you have the damaging. So that is pretty nice. And also added a minor heal on escape just in case you get one of those dinosaurs that switches, just so they can punish, just so you can punish them for swapping out. And also the stun immunity, I gave it a stun immunity to 100%, and that's actually because when I did the simulations, Arcturus would lose to some, I think it was Triceratops or the Dracorex. I think Dracorex. He lost to Dracorex, which is a resilient, and that shouldn't be the case. But with this stun immunity, he should be able to counter him with no problem. So yeah, and also I guess one interesting thing about stun is that I don't think stunning should be a resilient only ability. The most creatures, like almost all creatures that have a way to stun the opponent, most of them are resilient, which is weird. But you also have like immobilize, which is a fierce ability, and that applies stun. You also have new abilities like Little Quill Impact or something like that, something that Scorpius Rex has, where it bleeds you and it also gives you a percentage or a chance to get stunned. So, you know, it's like stunning, it's a universal ability. A cunning, a fierce, a resilient, doesn't matter what, they can all have a way to stun the opponent. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, getting back to the list, we got Arctops right here. The damage, or sorry, not the damage, the speed got changed drastically. I don't think it's really a drastic change, but don't worry, because Arctops is still able to counter rare fierce creatures. Maybe he won't be able to counter like an epic or a legendary fierce creature, but that's kind of something else, because you know epic creatures are better than rare creatures. So if there's an epic resilient and that resilient beats a rare or a common fierce creature, then that's fine. I accept that because it's a higher rarity, therefore it should be more powerful. So you know, it's whatever. So yeah, Arctops. Let's go down to Argentavis. Another cunning, Argentavis. Again, another cunning that has speed reduction resistance. I don't understand why this is becoming a thing right now. It doesn't make any sense. Like, why wouldn't you give a cunning immunity to bleed, but you give it like a resistance to speed reduction? That doesn't make that literally makes no sense. I just don't understand. Like, you might as well say that Argentavis it's like fierce cunning or resilient cunning, because I don't know, it's just so stupid. So yeah, the health damage got changed for the better. Also the new version of evasive impact, and remove that, and also added those two immunities. Well, actually only this got reduced to a 50%, just because you know only resilience can have 100%. Okay, and speaking of resilience, we get Argentinosaurus, which I buffed its HP. Like, it honestly seems a crime not to give Argentinosaurus 6000 health, or even more than that. Just because Argentinosaurus, I'm pretty sure, unless I'm stupid, he should be the one that has the most HP out of every dinosaur in the game. And he's also the biggest dinosaur ever, so it just makes sense for him to have 6000 HP. Like, I will actually consider it to give him a little bit more HP, because if you guys, something interesting that some of you probably didn't know is that when Gemini Titan was first introduced into the game, he had I think he had like on level 26 6360 HP, which that was like the highest HP that existed, and I think it still is the highest. I don't think anything came close to it. I mean, 6000 is like the closest thing to it, but yeah, it's really interesting to see why like they gave Gemini Titan so much HP, but they don't give Argentinosaurus that much HP. Like, what is going on here? Come on, man. Give Argentinosaurus some love, because he kinda needs it. Okay, so, whoops. Okay, so he got a group decelerating impact and also a resilient rampage. replace it with an extended critical strike, and of course it has the immunities of a resilient Bajadosaurus. So Bajadosaurus is kind of the same as an Amargosaurus, but it's a more offensive Amargosaurus because he has more damage output, I guess. So yeah, the health, I could have probably let the health the same. It's not a big difference in health. Damage also not really a big difference. The speed is a big difference, but it doesn't really matter because you can slow down opponents. So, you know, it doesn't really matter. And also he has a 10% armor, just so he can absorb more damage, just to help him a little bit. I replaced the superior vulnerability with a normal superiority strike. I don't know, I felt like superior vulnerability wasn't really, I don't know, it didn't feel, how do I say this? I just didn't like having superior vulnerability on Bajadasaurus, so I don't know, I just changed it. But I mean, the one advantage that you have with Rampage is that you don't have any delay, and you also only have one cooldown, so, you know, I mean, I guess Devastation is precise and it does 3 times damage, but also because I took away the Devastation, it just felt right to give him a maximal counterattack. So yeah, that's why I said he is more offensive than Amargosaurus. And he still has the swap in heal, but it's kind of useless on something with only 950 damage. It's kind of useless, but whatever. It's better than nothing, I guess. So, you know, whatever. Doesn't really matter. Okay, Baryonyx Gen 2. Yeah, the only thing that was really bad with Baryonyx, or the one thing that Baryonyx struggled, is that he didn't have enough damage output. But this time, as you can see, 500 plus damage. That will be a lot of damage, especially if you get a critical with Ready to Crush. That will definitely kill some resilience. Okay. Carnotaurus, another wild card. It doesn't really make sense why it's a wild card, because it doesn't have anything that's cunning to a normal fierce, to a pure fierce. He got a huge speed buff, because I'm pretty sure he kind of deserves to be this fast, because after all, like 104 speed for Carnotaurus, I can somewhat understand 104 speed for something like an Apatosaurus or a Stegosaurus, but for a Carnotaurus, like, come on, you can do better than this. So I just gave it that much speed, and not only that, he also is unable to get speed reducted. And also, I kind of had to replace most of its moveset with an armor piercing strike. I could have honestly gone with a defense shattering strike, but it's not a big difference. And also, he got the new version of the critical strike. He still has the cleansing impact. It kind of felt wrong to take away the cleansing impact of Carnotaurus, because I'm pretty sure Carnotaurus, from the first day that he was introduced into the game, he always had a cleansing impact, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, it felt wrong to change the cleansing impact. And that is Carnotaurus. Let's go to this new Carvesales. HP got a little bit buffed. The speed also got a little bit nerfed. Added an armor. Okay, I don't. Okay, just ignore this. I think I forgot to change this stuff. So just ignore those, because yeah, it doesn't matter. Now that I look at it, I don't think he got changed. Like, the biggest changes are with resistances. He's no longer resistant to swap prevention. He gets a critical reduction immunity, and that's kinda it, really. Okay, let's go to Charlie. Charlie got a little bit more health. Got the damage a little bit decreased, but he's still able to do a lot of damage even with that nerf in damage. Added a bleed 50%, and also added a small resistance of rending for 25%. This will definitely help him when he fights against Albertosaurus. If you guys remember what I said about rending being more cunning friendly, so yeah, this resistance will definitely help him to absorb a lot of that rending damage. And got the swap prevention and the bleed. Okay, Comzognathus Gen 2. The health, he had way too much health for like Comzognathus. He is a flock of 3, but even with a flock of 3 he shouldn't have that much health. And yeah, that's basically it. It has some changes, some minor changes to some resistances, but that's kinda it. Dinotherium, another wild card. Uh, Again, it doesn't really make sense why he's a wild card, because he doesn't have anything that's cunning. I feel like instant rumble should distract the opponent, but for some reason it doesn't, because it has the damage down, pointing down thing on the image. And talking about instant rumble, I also changed it so now it's more resilient, I guess. So it has a shield for 3 turns, 4 attacks. It still reduces the speed for 3 turns, and it also increases the critical chance for 20% for 3 turns. It's just a better version of Bello, I guess you can say. And because he is a resilient, I had to change him to a resilient. As you can see, this is also a new ability, a tough group resilient strike, which is basically just a normal resilient strike, but it targets all of the opponents, and also it increases the critical chance by 25% for 2 turns and 2 attacks. So this is basically just a better version of a normal resilient strike. Yeah, so that's basically the tough version of group resilient strike, I guess you can say. Yeah, the speed armor, like 5% armor, like it's kind of like it's too little. Like I can understand 5% critical chance, but 5% armor, that's, I don't really like that, so I increased it to 10%. Okay, Delta, another one of these raptors. So Delta got, yeah, basically he only got these 3 resistances, and that's basically it. Dilophosaurus, I added the 2 resistances that it has to have because it's a cunning. Also buffed its speed up by a little bit, and also it gets the new distracting impact, the new version of the distracting impact with only 1 cooldown. Dimetrodon, okay, we get to Dimetrodon now. HP got a little bit nerfed, but it's not a big deal, he can still survive it, don't worry. And also the bleed, kind of the same what I did with Dimetrodon Gen 2. Diplocaurus Gen 2, now if you remember, Diplocaurus, the normal Diplocaurus has a flock, and you know, because I gave that a flock, it just seemed normal to also give the Gen 2 a flock. So that's basically what I did. Of course he got way less HP now, but he is in a flock, so that doesn't really matter because he can just absorb damage. The speed also got a little bit reduced. Diplocaurus also has the new version of distracting impact, and I also added the new alert debilitating strike, the one that the normal Diplocaurus has. And of course it has all of those resistances. Diplotator, a cunning fierce creature. The health, you'll notice that even though Diplocaurus has a flock, I didn't give the Diplotator a flock, and I just felt like that will be too good for Diplotator to have. So yeah, it's not always the case where you hybridize a flock with a normal creature and you get like a flock creature. That's not always the case, you know. You have to have some variety, you know. So yeah, speed got nerfed a little bit. I don't really understand where he got all of that speed from, but okay. 127 speed for something like Deep Rotator. I think it's a little bit too much, not gonna, to be honest with you. And yeah, basically got a persistent Ferocious Strike, which is basically just a better version of the Ferocious Strike. And also added a new ability, the Long Distracting Strike. Which is basically just a normal distracting strike, but it reduces the damage for 3 turns and 6 attacks. This is basically like the cunning version of long protection. This is basically what this is. So yeah. And of course you got all of those resistances where he would definitely help him. Those resistances will definitely help him in a battle. Okay, the Odikurus. The Odikurus, the health got decreased, damage also decreased, his speed also got decreased by a lot, by 6 points. I added a minor counter attack and added the normal immunities for resilient, and that's basically it. Dracorex, okay, this is an interesting one. So, first of all, 4,800 health. What the actual hell is that? I know this is a game and it doesn't have to be 100% realistic, but at the same time, this is still kinda stupid to give such a small dinosaur so much health. If this was an Allosaurus, then I will be fine. But like this is a Dracorex. He's like 2 meters long. Like he has more health than a T-Rex, which is like 12 meters big. Like I just don't make any sense. So yeah, I just nerfed that speed. That's like the biggest thing that the biggest problem that I had with Dracorex. Not only that, but I also nerfed his health just because he was really unbalanced when he would kill a lot of fierce creatures, because some fierce creatures won't be able to take him out just because he had so much health. So yeah, I just had to nerf that. And apart from that, yeah, added a shielded decelerating impact, so he can defend itself with a shield, and he can also decelerate it. Decelerate the target with a precise decelerating strike. And also added a swap in headbutt, which is a new version of swap in headbutt actually, because the current version of swap in headbutt, it has a 67% chance to stun the opponent, but this time you get a 100% chance to stun the opponent, which I think it's you know, like swap in headbutt, I always saw it as a weaker version of swap in stunning strike, but with those changes that I've made, swap in headbutt, while he's not able to do a lot of damage because he only does like 0.5 times damage, he is able to bypass armor and also has a 100% chance to stun, while the new version of stunning strike, it has 75% chance to stun, but is not able to pass through armor, and also it attacks for 1 time, so it does more damage. But I mean, I guess it kind of depends in the situation you are in. If you want to bypass armor, use a swap in headbutt. If you don't, then I don't know, use something else, I guess. Dozongariptius. Okay, so another creature that got a flock. Yeah, but don't worry, it's not like he's powerful because he has a flock. He would still be able to kill like any rare cunning should be able to obliterate Dozongariptius. So don't worry about anything. He should be fine. Yeah, as I said right here, Fierce and Resilience can also have flocks, and I feel like we're gonna see this in the future, where there are gonna be some fierce creatures and some resilient creatures that are gonna have some flocks. Because right now only cunnings have flocks, and like I don't know, there are a lot of dinosaurs that are small but are also like fierce, just like the Zungaraptors or just like the Morphodon. And when you come to the resilient side, you have stuff like I guess Stygimoloch, although Stygimoloch is not small enough to have a flock. Stegosaurus, I guess it's the best example that I currently have. a Swarm Ferocity, which is a new ability. It's basically like the fierce counterpart to Alert to Scurry. That's basically what it is. As you can see right here, all of the effects that it does. And also a Swarm Shattering counter, which when you get down to only one creature, you can no longer counterattack. So this way it gets, it's balanced. You lose a lot of your dinosaurs, that means that you're not as powerful as you were. Okay, and yeah, the immunities, of course. And we go to Echo. The HP got buffed. Added a high bounce instead of a precise bounce. I could have leave it with a precise bounce. I don't really have much of a problem with Cunnings having precise bounce, but I don't know, like I feel like there are so many Cunnings right now that are able to counter dodge, or that are able to go through dodge, that doesn't really make sense. I mean, I'm not saying that a Cunning can't do that, they can do that, but I feel like there are too many Cunnings that can do that, so just leave that to the resilience, please. And of course it got like the same resistances as Delta and Charlie. Edmontosaurus, it's basically a better version of the Iguanodon. More damage, I think it's a little bit faster, even though he got nerfed in speed. Added a superiority strike and an alert stunning impact, and also a minor heal on escape, just in case some of those annoying Cunnings swap out. Okay, Anya Sutures. From a resilient to a fierce resilient, I basically give it a defense shattering strike, so he's now able to actually, like, after all, he is part fierce, so it just makes sense. And also has the new swap in stunning strike, the new version of that. And also speed, reduction, immunity, and vulnerability. Okay, Elasmotherium. Not much, I guess the HP is the biggest change. Also the damage, speed, the armor, yeah, I guess. He now has crit reduction, immunity, and speed reduction, 75%, which is a decent amount. Okay, Entelodon. So, Entelodon basically a better version of Archaeotherium. So more health. The damage is actually not as much as Archaeotherium, but that's because Entelodon has an impact, while Archaeotherium, and also the speed also got nerfed. Just that's the same story with Archaeotherium, because with that speed he will be able to counter some Cunnings, and that's not what we want. Got 10% armor, added speed reduction immunity, and vulnerability immunity, because why the hell not? Okay, so Arlicosaurus Gen 2. Yeah, I replaced the precise rampage with a normal rampage. The speed also got increased. I guess the biggest thing with Arlicosaurus is that the speed got nerfed. 123 speed, and but it doesn't really matter if you think about it, because the one thing that Arlicosaurus was already fast to begin with, and not only that, he has the ability to increase the speed with a minimal speed up strike, so it's not really a loss if you think about it, because minimal speed up strike it's from 10% will always give you an advantage. Even if Arlicosaurus had 120 speed, he will still be really, really fast. Not the fastest, but really fast. Because it also seemed weird how Arlicosaurus Gen 2 was faster than like a Utahraptor. That doesn't really make sense when you think about it, because like, sure, Arlicosaurus, I mean, of course we can't say for sure, but I guess he was fast as a dinosaur, but there is no way he would be faster than a Utahraptor. So I don't know, I just didn't really see the logic behind why they gave Arlicosaurus and Arlicosaurus Gen 2 so much speed. So yeah, I just had to nerf it. a little bit. It's not a big deal. He's still able to counter what he needs to counter. It's all good. And yeah, that's Erlikosaurus. Fukuisaurus, another new dinosaur. Fukuisaurus. So, another weird one. Another wild card that got changed into resilient. Again, I don't really see why he got, like, why would you, he doesn't have any cunning abilities. Like, why would you say that it's a wild card? That makes no sense. Fukuisaurus, as you can see, he got a pretty big nerf with the health, and that's because I googled searched the size of every dinosaur, of some dinosaurs, where I thought they had way too much or way too little HP. And I found out that Fukuisaurus is actually really small. Like, it's really small. I think it's smaller than like a Pachycephalosaurus, or it's probably like around the same size. So I was kind of surprised to see him, how small he is. So yeah, I had to nerf his health. Apart from that, I guess I also changed group resilient impact. Now it has 2 cooldowns instead of only 1, and that's only because I want those abilities to be more balanced, because with a group decelerating impact you only apply an effect to all of the opponents and then you attack. But with a group resilience, you add so many different effects, and not only that, you also attack and you also cleanse yourself, which, you know, I personally thought this was, I don't know, I just wanted it to have 2 cooldowns. It just seems more fair. So yeah, I just wanted to do that, if you're wondering. And also added a small shielding counter. So because he doesn't have as much HP as he used to do, he will get a lot of battles where he will die just because he won't have enough HP. And the small shielding counter, basically it gives you a shield every time when you get attacked. So yeah, every time when you attack this guy, he will have a shield ready to go. So yeah, that's just gonna make him more, you know, that's basically gonna help him survive a lot of cunnings. And I mean, it won't help him survive against fierce creatures because, you know, a resilient. Giraffe Titan, the big Titan. So the damage added a precise rampage, and also the damage, a little bit of damage increase. It's not a big deal. Remove the swap prevention. I don't understand why they decided to give Giraffe Titan a resilient, a swap prevention, but they don't want to give a cunning or swap prevention. That just makes no sense. And yeah, basically it's just a better resilient now. Gorgonops, it's kind of the same with Arctops, where he got some nerfs, he got some buffs, some indirect buffs I should say. Arctops, what? I think Arctops is like faster than, or sorry, Gorgonops. Gorgonops. Did I say Arctops? I meant to say Gorgonops. So can we find? Okay, yeah, Arctops is actually faster this time than Gorgonops, because right now Gorgonops should theoretically be faster, but I made it slower. I'm not too sure why I decided to do that, but it doesn't really matter. So yeah, none of its abilities changed. The speed, and he also got the more damage. I guess the resistances, I added a lot of resistances to him just so he can counter stuff like Albertosaurus, just because Albertosaurus will kill him, just because of that killer instinct. And yeah, so Gorgosaurus, like, out of all the fierce creatures ever, you decide to put speed reduction immunity on a dinosaur, on a fierce creature that has only 102 speed. That's so stupid. Like that, unless, I mean, of course, if you boost it, if you put all of your boost in that speed, then yeah, sure, it makes sense. But like, what the hell? Like, it's so stupid. So yeah, I'm not saying that 107 is also a good speed, but it's definitely you're definitely gonna be able to outspeed more dinosaurs with 107 than with 102 speed. So yeah, I also gave it a ferocious impact, and that's also why I nerfed its damage by that much, just because he will do way too much damage with 1700. He will do way too much damage. So yeah, Hust Eagle Gen 2 got the new Evasive Strike, the new version of Evasive Strike. Also got 500 plus plus damage. Apart from that, I guess, yeah, the bleed immunity also gets added, and that's really it. In Asterium, I wanted him to be a cunning fierce, because that's what he should be, if you think about it. So yeah, added a group defense shattering strike. The speed, I had to nerf a little bit of that speed, because it didn't really make sense where he got all of that speed from. He did get a little bit more health, and also he got a medium cunning counter, which this is like the cunning version of the resilient medium cunning counter. So yeah, that's basically what it is. With Irrotator, there was a problem. Like, Irrotator doesn't have anything where he can just attack. Like, the only reason Irrotator exists, and the only reason you will have Irritator, is to make Magna Irritator, and also to help you in some raids if you don't have something like a Tristornix. But apart from that, he's not useful in a battle. He might be like the worst rare creature into battle. Like a Hedgerosaurus, I think it's better than him in PvP, because I don't know, he just doesn't, like, sure, he can do damage, but it's not enough, and yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I had to change that. First of all, the speed got decreased because it was way too much for the first to have that speed. Damage got increased, health got decreased. Added a group ferocity, which is group ferocity is basically just a better version of group takedown, because as you can see right here, they're basically similar, but group takedown has one delay, and also it doesn't cleanse critical reduction. So yeah, I don't really understand why group takedown even exists, to be honest, but whatever, I guess. And also added a medium first counter, which is basically the first counterpart to the cunning medium counter. So yeah, as you can see right here, as the name suggests, it's a medium first counter. And of course added to, I think I only added the stun immunity just because of Dracorex. Like the same situation with what was his name? Baryonyx Gen 2, I think, because he would lose against him, which, yeah, I just had to give him the stun immunity. So, Caprosuchus, the health got a little bit nerfed. Like, I think there is like one problem with Caprosuchus, and that is that I don't think anyone really knows how big Caprosuchus really was or is. Because I've seen a lot of articles saying that he was like, I don't know, like 1 to 2 meters, and then I saw like an article say that it's like 5 meters long, and whoa, hold on, what the hell? I don't think he's really that big, so I don't know. Like, I could have probably let him have the HP, the current HP, but I decided to change it anyway, just, I don't know, just because I kind of wanted to, but yeah, it doesn't really affect him too much when it comes to beating down resilience. So yeah, it's whatever, it doesn't really matter. I keep saying that it doesn't really matter, but it does kind of matter a little bit, but I don't know, I just keep saying the same stuff over and over again, and whatever, just forget about that. Damage, I mean, he got a health decrease, but he also got a nice damage increase. He will be able to do a lot of damage now, which is really interesting. And yeah, it got the new version of Fair Strike and Group Ferocity Strike. and it also keeps the cleansing strike, just because why not. Okay, Kelenken got a little bit of damage. I mean, the damage, it has way too much damage. Like, when it gets down to 1600 damage, like that is where fierce creatures, like fierce creatures have that much damage. You don't really see cunning creatures have that much damage. It's kind of ridiculous how much damage that is for a cunning. For a fierce creature it makes sense, but for the cunning that's a little bit too much, not gonna lie. So yeah, just a better photo specs, that's basically what Kelenken is. Kula Sutures Gen 2, a weaker version of the normal Kula Sutures. Health got decreased, damage also got decreased, speed also got decreased, however he does have the new distracting impact and also the medium cunning counter, so even though he lost damage, he actually gained more in damage output than in like pure damage. And also the bleed and swap resistance also got added. Majunda Suchas, it's a pure fierce now, so it no longer has a shield, it no longer has a resilience strike, but it gets an extended critical strike, and the new version of first strike, it also gets a rending counter, because ferocity, it's not really that good. Ferocity, I think rending it's better for him, and armor piercing counter, and that is basically the same. The resistances of a fierce creature, and also he's also really fast now. 140 speed, it's really fast for something like this. It's really fast. He still has like less health than Majungasaurus, but you know, it's enough to get the job done. Okay, Marsupial Lion. Okay, this is gonna be an interesting one. So, the problem with Marsupial Lion, you might think that it's weird how a first creature has something like a prowl where it dodges, and like the ability seems alright, but because prowl is on Marsupial Lion, which is a pure fierce, it seems a little bit weird, because only a cunning should be able to dodge when you think about it. However, it's nothing game breaking, and even with a dodge, you kind of have to think logically about this, because even if a fierce creature like Marsupial Lion or any other fierce has a prowl or has an ability that can dodge, it won't really help him that much. Sure, he will be able to like evade a rampage from a cunning or whatever. At the end of the day, Marsupial Lion will still be distracted. He will still be destroyed by literally every cunning possible. Like if instead prowl, if for some reason prowl, instead of having an evasion effect, if he had a deceleration or a vulnerability effect, then yes, Marsupial Lion will not be able to have prowl, because he shouldn't really be able to do those effects. Only a resilience should be able. There is also the same case, this is also the same case with shield advantage on Diplodocus. It's able to shatter shield and pierce armor, something that only a first should be able to do, but also it's not like a resilient will be able to counter a first creature when you use a shield advantage, because you know, a shield advantage won't do anything to a first creature, because he will just pierce through that shield like there is no one there, you know. So it's kind of the same logic. I hope you guys can somewhat understand what I'm trying to say. It's, I don't know, I'm not really good at explaining this stuff, but hopefully you can read on this note that I did right here and understand my point of view and what I was trying to do here. So yeah, this is Marsupial Lion. It got the HP got reduced by a lot. However, it got a pretty decent damage, a pretty decent speed increase, which that's really good. vulnerability got changed 100%. And that's basically it. So let's go to something more simple, to Megaloceros. Megaloceros, it's kind of similar to Carve's class, Carvela class, or whatever it was called, the other deer. But Megaloceros, it's not able to get distracted because he is immune to distraction. They're kind of similar. I guess Megaloceros also has more health. So yeah, and also I think it does have a little bit more armor, but yeah, I don't know. It's just like a similar version of Carvesacles, but Megaloceros, I guess Megaloceros, it's more defensive than offensive, so that's that, I guess. Megalonyx, another calling with a bunch of problems. So Megalonyx, the one problem that I always had with Megalonyx is that it had way too much damage output for like a cunning. Like, I mean, sure, a Resilient will be able to counter that with shields, but even that, even some Resilience will still get absolutely destroyed by Megalonyx. So I just had to nerf him a little bit. I know it sucks, but I just have to do what I have to do. Those are the rules. And yeah, this time it's more balanced. Megalosaurus, kind of the same situation with like Majungasaurus. So from resilient fierce to a pure fierce. And yeah, it's basically just a pure fierce now. He's able to pierce, to shatter shields, and also to increase its damage capabilities with persistent ferocious strike. And yeah, that's he also got the immunities to stun. What is this? Meolania didn't change much. I added a better healing ability, but that's kind of it really. I mean, of course it has the resistances, the new resistances, but that's kind of it really. Not much to say about Meolania. Mashups, not really, again, not too much to say about him. He had way too much health for something that's kind of small, so I had to nerf that. Narutoceratops from wildcard, again a wildcard. Like, I don't understand why wildcards are always the ones that, and again, he doesn't even belong to a wildcard because he has no fierce capabilities, so it doesn't make any sense. Health got greatly reduced. This is like the same situation with Dracorex. Like, why so much HP? It makes no sense. Next creature on the list is Nodosaurus. Much has changed with Nodosaurus. The health, it's like the biggest change, and of course the resistances, but that's kind of, you can kind of start seeing this more and more, so you can kind of understand why I keep changing some resistances and why some are not changed. You can kind of guess by at this point what I'm trying to do. An Ornithomimus. Yes, Ornithomimus. What do I say about this guy? So his HP got a little bit nerfed. His damage, he has like, first of all, he has way too much damage for something like this. It's way too much. So I just had to nerf that because it was too powerful. And of course it has the new version of Evasive Strike and some resistances. Oviraptor. Okay, so you'll notice that yes, I did also give Oviraptor a flock. However, this flock is only made out of 2 creatures, so it's not 3 creatures like the regular Compsognathus or Compsognathus or whatever. With this change, the HP also changes to like 700 plus HP points. The Courageous Alert, which is basically the impact version of Courageous Alert to Strike, and that's basically what it is. And of course the bleed and swap prevention immunities. Postosuchus, okay, first creature. Postosuchus, it's not really good. However, I made it better. So as you can see, his HP got buffed a significant amount, and of course the damage also got buffed to its original damage that he used to have before the big change happened. And of course it has the new version of First Strike and the new group Ferocity Strike, and that's basically it. The resistances are fine, so I don't really need to change them. Prendoctactylus, one of the new creatures that, yes, as you can see right here. So yeah, Prendoctactylus is no longer the fastest creature in the game. It's still really fast, but you know, the Velociraptor still is the fastest, which you know, I really like seeing Velociraptor being the fastest just because he kind of deserves it to be. Again, nothing much apart from the speed. I think it's like the biggest change, and maybe the damage. Maybe the damage from 1350 to 1200, and that's basically it. And also, of course, it another thing that I forgot, the speed immunity. Again, why does the Cunning have a speed immunity? That makes absolutely no sense. If you want to make the fastest creature immune to deceleration, then make it a first creature or make it like a wildcard, or just anything else but a Cunning, because it makes no sense. But whatever, let's not get too mad. Proceratosaurus, I didn't really know what to do with Proceratosaurus because I didn't really want to make him similar to Dilophosaurus, but I wanted him to be different. It's like the same situation with Allosaurus and Tarbosaurus, like, or with Ophiocodon and Tarbosaurus. I think that's a better example. So yeah, I just wanted to change him a little bit. So I added a minimal speed up strike, and that's like the biggest change, I guess, because unlike Dilophosaurus, yes, he is slower than him, but he can speed up. He can use the speed up to its advantage and become the fastest creature in the battle, which is a really good thing to have. Okay, Purolith. From a first resilient to a first, the HP got a little bit buffed. The speed also got buffed because, let's be honest, like a creature that looks like this and that has the animation of a Velociraptor, I'm pretty sure something that has this type of animation should at least have 110 plus speed, because it makes no sense to have it, to make it so slow. Like, it doesn't really make sense. Like, even 116 speed, it's a little bit low. But you know, if I made it anything faster, then I think it will be a little bit too powerful. So I think 116 speed, it's good enough. And yeah, I changed also some things. So for one, I know it no longer has a ferocious strike. It does have a binding impact, and also it no longer has a short defense because it's a fierce creature. It makes no sense why he will have that. So I just replaced it with an armor piercing impact. So on one side, it gets 2 impact abilities and an impact that can pierce through armor, but on the other side, it loses short defense and ferocious strike. Yeah, I guess depending on how you look at it, it might have been nerfed. However, the speed buff will probably help him become better than the actual version. So yeah, and also I added the immunities that a first needs. So yeah, it didn't really change much. Again, I kind of forgot to change the notes right here, but and also it doesn't have an armor piercing impact. I just forgot again to change the notes, but just ignore that, it's not a big deal. So yeah, it is Purosaurus, not too interesting. Quetzalcoatlus, the HP got really nerfed, and kind of sucks for him, but at the same time, if you think about it, like, yes, I know Quetzalcoatlus, it's huge, but you have to keep in mind that Quetzalcoatlus, Aramburgiana, and Herzegovrex, pterosaurs, those 3 pterosaurs, even though they are huge, they are really light, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to fly. So yeah, and got changed. The almost all of them got changed, and that's only because I would have some problems with his current moveset where he wouldn't be able to counter a cunning, and I just had to switch that around. So now it counters every rare cunning. Added critical reduction, distraction immunity, and a little bit of speed reduction. Scavognatus, like the same, this is the same scenario with Dimorphodon. So it has a flock of 3, it has a minor bleed counter, which is something new that I made, a 15% of target HP for 2 turns. It's nothing too crazy, it's just so it helps him a little bit. And also something new, it's a rally heal. So you know how we have like normal heals that heal our HP. Well, now this is the same thing, but for flock creatures. So what does this do? So it is disabled if you're full HP, if you don't have any problem with that, with the HP. However, when you get down to 66% of your health, you can cleanse 65. I think it should be like 66% there, but it's not a big difference. So you heal 65% of your HP, which is really good, especially for something that now has a flock, which means that you will be able to heal 2 of your dinosaurs basically and take a huge hit, and then you can do like a pinning strike or a minor swap, and not only that, you also have a minor bleed counter. So there's that. I also changed the no escape on the alert swarm, which is basically on escape but for flocks. And yeah, that's basically Scavognatus. And also the speed got a little bit nerfed, but it's not a big deal. He can still like counter. I don't think he can necessarily counter every resilient, but at the same time I don't think he will be able to lose against any resilient, because you will swap out with the soup and all of that stuff. So now we go to Spinosaurus, which is a really big dinosaur if you don't really know. Again, like many other creatures, I just don't really understand why it has so low health. Like, it makes no sense if you think about it, but I don't know, it's whatever. Also a little bit of damage increase. The speed got nerfed because something that big cannot be that fast. Like, that's a little bit ridiculous, let's be honest here. And of course you got the new abilities, the new versions of the already existing abilities, like First Impact, First Strike, with the increased damage effect, and also added the resistances to vulnerability and immunity to speed. Yeah, so Suchetator. Suchetator got completely changed into a first creature. Like, Suchetator, out of like at least this wildcard, at least Suchetator makes sense why it's a wildcard. Sure, none of its components have like a distraction and damage in cleansing, but the moveset of Suchetator, like, it resembles a wildcard. This is how a wildcard should look like. But of course, because of the way I'm making this, I'm gonna have to change it into a pure first creature. And that's basically what changed with Suchetator. So he's now able to, he's still able to bleed, just not as much. It gets a wounding impact, which is still good. You do more damage, you don't do as much bleed damage, but you do more damage. However, the thing that Suchetator now has is a persistent ferocious strike, so he's able to buff its attack to, to do more damage, bleed, and just like base damage. And of course it got a no escape and some resistances. Tenantorsaurus, another one of those Hedgerosaurus that are really garbage. Yeah, basically, like most of the Hedgerosaurus, one way of making them good is just to add a medium resilient counter to every Hedgerosaurus that only has heal and one strike. That's like one of the ways to make a Hadrosaur good. So that's kind of what I did with Tenantosaurus. So, you know, this time he's actually able to counter Cunnings and he's able to defend itself, I guess you can say. So, yeah, pretty good change for Tenanto. So we get to Titanoboa Gen 2. Yeah, Titanoboa. I mean, the swap prevention immunity, yes, it doesn't really make sense for the resilient. And also one thing that I did is you'll notice that I did change the on escape dust cloud to a collision, which is an attack on escape, but with a critical chance of 100%. So, you know, I could have left the dust cloud and not change it. I wouldn't have a problem with that, but the thing is that on escape dust cloud has a damage increase. But even then, I honestly could just leave it like that, because it won't make much of a difference. So yeah, I just replaced it with a collision. I could have let it have the. I could have let him keep the on escape dust cloud. But I don't know. I still change it. So you know, whatever. It's no big deal. He can still counter stuff. So yeah, not a big change. Unlike Triceratops, so it got a huge HP increase because after all, Triceratops is really big, so he kinda deserves to have that much HP. A speed a little bit debuffed, but it's not a big deal. The speed a little bit nerfed, but it's almost the same speed. It now has an impact instead of a strike, so it can dish out a little bit more damage. And of course it has the new version of swapping stunning, strike, and the resilient immunities and resistances, like crit reduction and damage reduction. Tujangosaurus this time it's a Stegosaurid, so it's gonna have a more offensive, how do I say this? He has more offensive abilities like a Tagomizer, which is able to impose vulnerability. This is obviously another new ability that I made myself. And I replaced the precise impact with a precise. I replaced the precise rampage with a precise impact, just so it doesn't. Just so Tujangosaurus, like, it got an impact in favor of a strike, and now the rampage is replaced with an impact. So it's like a fair trade-off. You take 15% of damage from the precise rampage and you put it into the Tagomizer. So it's all, you know, it's all nice and fair. And yeah, not really much to say. I guess it does have a little bit more HP and armor, so it's able to survive. So it has more chances of surviving. Yeah, that's basically Tujangosaurus, and we're almost to the end actually. To Pandactylus, I think this is like the third or the fourth last one. So the Pandactylus feels resilient because it has a shield, but this time it no longer has the shield. It has the critical, the extended critical strike, the new version of course, and the immunities to speed and vulnerability, as well as some minor buff to damage and health. We get to T-Rex Gen 2. So the speed is definitely increased, just like all the other Tyrannosaurids, like Allosaurus, Tarbosaurus. Yeah, added the new first strike and the immunity to speed reduction and vulnerability resistance. And now we get to Utahraptor. Okay, so Utahraptor is a really big raptor, and it kind of bothers me that out of all the raptors, Utahraptor probably has like the second or the third lowest HP, and that kind of bothers me just a little bit, so I added his health. So now his health is definitely a really big increase. However, the damage, you know, when you get a health increase, you kind of have to get a damage decrease as well in some situations. So he got that, and he also has the new long dodge, which is actually this is a weird ability because This ability was introduced a long time ago in the update, but no other creature had this ability, so, you know, I was thinking that, you know, I mean, give Yutarator long dodge. I don't think it's a big deal, so, you know, I just, yeah, it's basically, this ability, it's basically what the name says. It's that it dodges for a long period of time, which is for 3 turns and 4 attacks. So even with a counter attacker, you should still be safe. Obviously the resistances and all of that stuff. And now we get rare dinosaur, Warhosaurus, I think it's called. Warhosaurus. So, Warhosaurus. Another stegosaurid, so it's basically like, I don't know if it's a more, I think it's like more of a defensive to Jangosaurus in this case, because it has more HP, more armor. It's also a little bit faster. The armor did get changed a little bit. It has more damage, but it doesn't have a counter. And also it has the Greater Tegomazo, which is the Rampage version of the normal Tegomizer. And also it has a critical reduction immunity and a resistance to 75% of destruction, which will help him to counter everything, basically, because even if you are in a situation when someone uses an instant distraction, you will still have enough damage to do some damage to him, to whatever the creature is. So yeah, this is basically Warsaurus, nothing that drastically. So this is it for the rest. Let's go now to an epic creature. Let's start now with epic creatures. So our first epic creature, oh my god, it's taking so long, is Acrocanthosaurus. Ooh, interesting dinosaur. So Acrocanthosaurus, I didn't like, kind of like Allosaurus Gen 2. I didn't like that it had a group cleansing strike. Like, I don't understand why they gave, like, I think they just gave up on trying to be creative, to be honest, when it came to Acrocanthosaurus or Allosaurus, just because they always just keep doing the same stuff. They always just put a cleansing impact on a random first creature or on a resilient. I don't think there are any resilience, but you get what I'm trying to say. It's just nothing that interesting. So yeah, Acrocanthosaurus, the HP got a little bit nerfed, but it's not a big deal. He can still survive, so don't worry about that. The speed got, and it also has a wounding strike, which did I say? Yeah, this is basically a strike version of the wounding impact, so nothing that special. It has a normal defense shattering strike and a rampage. It doesn't have the normal, or I guess the new version of first impact or first rampage, just because I thought he will be better off being fully immune to vulnerability instead of only being partially immune, so, or partially resistant. So I just went with the defense shattering rampage and defense shattering impact. And of course I added the immunity, slow immunity, vulnerability immunity, and a little bit of bleed resistance, because why not? Let's go to now this is interesting. This creature is actually a really recent creature. The problem with this creature, as this panda, is he is a resilient fierce, and a lot of his abilities, as you can see right here, are basically a fusion between resilient and fierce. And because of that, I kind of had to change all of its moveset, just so it, you know, it's more of a fierce than it being a fierce resilient, because it's a normal creature, it's a non-hybrid, which means, you know, it's only made out of one class and one class only. So yeah, the health pretty much, it got a little less health, and you'll also notice that I did nullify the counter power heal. I think this is the time where we get to see so many creatures having this ability, this one specific ability, that it's starting to get a little bit annoying just how many creatures have this ability right now. And yeah, I don't really like that, so I just replaced it with something better. Well, I mean, it kind of depends on how you look at it. With a quick rage counter, which is something new that I created. And yeah, it basically increases the damage for only for 25%, but it is for 2 turns, 1 attack, and also, as well as the critical chance for 25% for 2 turns, 1 attack. So you can, if you're lucky, you can buff yourself up just by the counter alone. You can buff your critical chance by 15%, which is really good, and the damage by 15%. So that's really good for the first creatures anyway. And as well as the ferocious shielded heal, it kind of had to get a little bit nerfed. So I added the minor ferocious heal, which is basically the same as ferocious shielded heal, but without the shield. So that's the only difference basically. And I guess the damage, yeah, that's basically the only difference actually. And it has the new version of First Impact as other first creatures. It also has another new ability, Rend and Run, which is basically like the rending counterpart to Little Rampage and Run. That's kind of what it is, but without the bleed part. So instead of bleeding, it does rending damage. So break shields, bypass armor, rend 50%, which it depends on the situation. It can either be a lot or not so much. And it's also, you also make the target unable to turn, to swap out for 2 turns. And you yourself swap out. So with Alanka, I had to change the HP a little bit, just a little bit. It's not that big of a change. Added a security strike, so he's able to decelerate. So now he's able to, to actually counter Cunnings, because even with the long invisibility and the rampage and the resilience strike, he still kind of lack some, I guess he still wasn't good enough, so I just had to give it a way to counter Cunnings better. And yeah, precise rampage as well. Long invisibility is still the same, added critical reduction, and of course the other resistances, just like every other resilient. Allosaurus Gen 2. Yeah, Allosaurus Gen 2, this is kind of what I was talking about with Acrocanthosaurus. So Allosaurus Gen 2 this time, it gets the cleansing shattering strike replaced with the new version of the first strike, and also it changes the resistances change a little bit. He can now be bled only 50%, which he can still be bled, but he's not immune to it. Speed reduction 100%, because like if you give something like Allosaurus Gen 2 with 105 speed, reduce speed 50%, like that's just bad. Like I'd rather have him not have that. It just like, why not give it 100%? That just makes no sense. Like his speed is low enough anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But unlike this time, this will actually matter, because he is 109, which is pretty fast for like a first creature. Let's go now to Amargocephalus. Nothing much changed really. I mean, I guess the resistances, and that's basically it really. So again, nothing that significant. Angiotarium, however, it did get a little bit of change, as you can see. So from a wild card down to a resilient fierce, and the speed little bit buffed, the damage just a little bit buffed, the health as well he got a little bit buffed, the armor also got buffed, and added a new first impact, so now it has a first impact instead of a ferocious strike. So now he's able to counter like a cunning resilient, because that's what resilient fierce counters. And as well as I did remove the swap prevention just because like fierce plus resilient already they shouldn't be immune to swap prevention, and fierce creatures, they can be immune, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they can be. And when you just add resilient and fierce together, it just removes it. It makes the swap prevention a weakness. If you remember from what I've told you in the beginning. And yeah, distraction got a little bit changed. Critical reduction also changed, but it doesn't really matter if you think about it. The speed reduction also to 100% this time, so he's actually able to, you know, do something. And the group warning squeal, I didn't change it because it does shield, it increases the critical chance and increases the damage, so you know, it's fierce resilient. It's a fierce resilient ability if you think about it, so you know, it's fine. I don't see why I have to change it. Anjutodon, which is Anjutodon is basically like the same as Anjuterium, but I guess you can say that Anjutodon it's more offensive, I guess. I'm not too sure actually. They are really close. If I were to choose between them, I think I will go with Androtops or Anjutodon, not Androtops. That's something else. Yeah, I think I will go with Androtodon, but honestly, they are pretty much the same thing. So yeah, the speed got like, I don't see why he has so little speed to begin with. More armor, it's always good. Critical chance, a little bit of decrease, but it's not a big deal. A shielding strike, just because he is a resilient fierce after all. And a precise impact, because again, resilient, you know, he kinda needs to counter a little bit of cunning, because otherwise he won't be good enough. And what the hell do I have here? Why did I write so many notes? No matter how many resilience you add to a fierce resilient, he still keeps the fierce, some of its fierce aspects in its blood, I guess you can say. In this case, Ankylodicurus is more resilient than it is fierce, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you should ignore its fierce side. So that's basically what I'm trying to say. It's just, you know, you may add like 10 other resilience to Ankylodicurus or whatever, but he still is a fierce resilient in my eyes, just because, you know, like, it's kind of a shame just to ignore class when you hybridize with it and you just ignore that. It's kind of sad. So with its abilities, I did give it a heavy strike, which is a heavy strike. If you think about it, it's basically a combination of a first strike and a resilient strike. So as it is right here, this is as I should have said this. This is the new version of heavy strike, because the current version isn't as good as this one that I made right here. So it removes dodge instead of speed decrease. The normal heavy strike removed a speed increase, but this version, my version of the heavy strike, no longer removes that, just because I think dodge it's more important than removing speed increase, in my opinion, for cunning after all. After you do an attack, you get the damage increase that a first strike has, like a normal first strike has. And yeah, as I said right here, the reason I changed this is because I want to make this ability feel like a mix between a first strike and a resilient strike. So and apart from that, he's still pretty much the same. I guess I did remove the, okay, well, it's not the same. I have to stop using that word because I use it way too often in this. So yeah, the bleed resistance, I removed it because again, fierce resilient shouldn't be immune to bleed and swap prevention, and not only that, he also is made out of another resilience, so that just further makes my point valid. Where it starts to get complicated with super hybrids, because so far with normal hybrids, a fierce resilient, yes, it kind of makes sense, the immunities that it has, the abilities and all of that. But when it gets down to a creature, in this case Ankylosaurus, which is more fierce than which is more resilient than it is fierce, it kind of gets complicated with all the immunities and the resistances. So because it is more resilient, it gets the immunities of a resilient creature, which means that it gets immunity to crit reduction and immunity to distraction, which in this case it's only a resistance to distraction, and he still gets the immunities of a fierce creature, because a normal fierce resilient creature is immune to speed decrease and vulnerabilities. So just adding another resilient in that recipe, it doesn't really affect those immunities. It doesn't affect them. So yeah, he still keeps the speed reduction, immunity, and the vulnerability resistance. So health got a little bit nerfed, damage got a little bit buffed. The speed definitely got nerfed. There is no way something like this is faster than a T-Rex. Like, that's just ridiculous. It also gets a medium counter attack, so you know he's able to do just a little bit more damage to defend itself. And of course all of those resistances. Antarctopelta, which is a more offensive version of Ankylosaurus. So the damage got a little bit decreased, but it does have a counter attack, so he does actually do more damage just because it has like a full counter attack. The armor got a little bit decreased. It now has a taunting shields, vulnerability impact instead of the revenge instant ferocity, which is the dumbest ability and also the worst ability that I've ever seen in my entire life. So this is it, I guess, for Antarctopelta. Anorachnotus, okay. This is an interesting one. So there is a bit of a problem here. So the one problem that I had with Anorachnotus is that the alert frenzy ability isn't what it should be in the game, because in the patch notes for the update 2.14 they said that in the threatened state of the alert frenzy, it will do 1 times attacks 2 times. 1 times attacks 2 times, basically meaning that you do a rampage, but you attack twice. So you know, it's kind of weird. However, in the game, even when it gets down to be threatened, he still does 1.5 times damage 2 times, which is basically a devastation. So I changed it to a rampage, so it's a little bit more balanced. And I don't know if this is a typo or like a mistake that the patch notes did or the game developers did, but yeah, as I said, in the threatened state it still does a devastation, which is still just too powerful because he also heals himself. So like, I don't understand why they decided to do such a weird ability. So I don't know, it's just such a weird ability that yeah, I just had to change it. And also also because of this weird ability, I also had to nullify a lot of his damage, because otherwise he will be able to counter resilience because he will do too much damage. This is basically what I did with Anorachnotus. You might not like it, you might hate it, you might like it, I don't know. I don't care, I just do what I want to do and what I like. So Aqualimimus, 3000 HP, it's better than less, 3000 HP. It obviously has the new versions of Evasive Rampage, Strike, and the Distracting Impact, and added a bleed immunity, and that's basically it. Oh my god, what the hell is going on here? So yeah, Argentarix, he do be looking kind of thick. So yeah, as you can see, there are so much stuff with this Argentarix, which I just kind of had to stretch out the image just so I can fit it in this bigger image. It's just so, it's kind of stupid, but whatever. Let's forget about that. So Argentarix is one of the more unbalanced creature in the game, and because of that I obviously had to change it. So health got dropped down like it should be. Obviously there are the new versions of these abilities, and then it also has the new alert scanning rampage. And the only reason I did this, it's the same reason I gave Archaeopteryx the alert scanning rampage. It's just because I want him to be more balanced, and so you can read right here, if you can even read it, it's so small, what the alert scanning rampage does. And obviously I added those resistances, or actually I changed some of those resistances, for example this to this and this to this. So yeah, Argentarix, let's go to something more simple like Baryonyx. So Baryonyx, yes, a little bit too fast for a fierce creature. I mean, a fierce creature, don't get me wrong, a fierce creature can have like 126 or 128 speed, but for something like Baryonyx, which has a lot of HP and also has a lot of damage, and you know, it doesn't really, I don't want him to be that fast because he kind of makes him powerful. So, you know, I just had to nerf that a little bit, and added ready to crush instead of the group takedown, which I mean, if I've got to be honest, has anyone ever used a group takedown in a raid with a Baryonyx? Like, I don't, that they might, maybe some of you guys used it, but honestly a ready to crush is just 10 times much better. So yeah, a group takedown is just so bad. So I just had to change it. I'm sorry, I just had to. And yeah, it obviously gets the defense shattering rampage and the immunities to all of those stuff right here, and a little bit of stun immunity to help him against Stygimoloch, because Stygimoloch will actually kill a Baryonyx, but that's only because if Stygimoloch gets the stun, then he will be able to counter Baryonyx. But I just gave it a 50% immunity in stun, so he has more chances to kill the Stygimoloch, because after all, Stygimoloch is a resilient, and you know, fierce resilient. So let's go down to blue. Blue. It's not looking too blue. I mean, the one in the game, my version is actually superior, I might say. So yeah, blue. The HP was like the biggest problem with blue. He had, I think, he had like a lot of HP before he got nerfed, and I don't understand why they decided to completely nerf him. It doesn't really make sense why, but yeah, I just wanted blue to be great again, I guess you can say. And yeah, his HP buffed, and also added some bleed resistance and some swap prevention resistances and all of that good stuff. So he's definitely a much better raptor this time. Okay, Brachiosaurus. Yeah, with Brachiosaurus again, the speed, like, why would you make something this big so fast? Makes no sense. And also the swap prevention or a resilient creature, it makes no sense, so I just had to get rid of that and change some of those resistances right here. Let's go to Brontolasmus. Oh, what an awesome name, Brontolasmus. He just sounds like an end game boss. Health from like under 4000 HP to more than 4000 HP. Damage still, yes, it did get a little bit nerfed. I'm pretty sure he had way too much damage. Honestly, he had way too much damage. And now there is a really controversial part right here. So a normal decelerating rampage, right, has a delay, and that makes sense, right? Because a defense shattering has a delay. Distracting rampage has also a delay, and also like a group cunning, for example, a group cunning rampage also has a delay. a group shattering rampage, which I know it doesn't exist anymore, but when it used to exist, it also had a delay. But like, the one thing that I don't understand is that why is group decelerating rampage one of the only few abilities that doesn't have a delay, one of the few rampage abilities that doesn't have a delay. And that's kind of, I don't know, that's kind of where I'm questioning a lot of stuff, because I get, you'll probably be mad at me for this, but I just, like, I kind of have to follow the rules, and, you know, it's just, like, sure, there are gonna be, because of this change alone, all of the raid strategies and stuff like that will get changed because of this change. Yes, this is a really big change if you think about it. The one thing, I guess, like, I guess you can say that that having a decelerating rampage, or a group decelerating rampage in this case, with 2 cooldowns, it's the same as having a group decelerating rampage with 1 cooldown and 1 delay. At the same time, like this is the weird thing. It's you know how there's like high pounce, which pounce is basically just like a rampage, but it only distracts the target for 1 turn, and that's basically like the only difference. And also it only has 1 cooldown. I feel like this is what a group decelerating rampage should be. If for example, if group decelerating rampage would have reduced the speed only for 1 turn, just like how pounce reduces damage for 1 turn, then I wouldn't mind having a group decelerating rampage having only 2 cooldowns. However, you know, because I'm trying to make this game as balanced as I can, like, obviously there are gonna be some stuff that are never gonna be fixed, but, you know, that's, I can't fix anything. At the end of the day, I kind of have to follow some rules, and, you know, I just want to make this game a better and more enjoyable game. So, you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. So, you know, I don't really want to talk about that anymore, because, you know, I kind of want to get over with this so I can finally go to bed, because I've been recording for like 3 hours. So with Bumpy, didn't change much, didn't really want to change him much. From what I've seen, Bumpy, it's small. It's definitely a small dinosaur, so the 4200 HP seemed a little bit too much for him. So because of that, of course, I do what I do and nerf every creature until they're balanced. And of course, I changed and added some resistances right here just to balance things out. And that is Bumpy, a really short one. Carboname is another one that's short. Yeah, the health, a little bit of health increase. And that's kinda it, really, nothing too interesting. Comsognathus, a little bit of health decrease. Distraction went a little bit up, the resistance. And of course I added the swap prevention resistance and the bleed resistance. And that's it. Again, nothing too crazy. So Concavenator, it's up next. And he got the big change. Obviously, he is no longer a resilient fierce, he is a pure fierce this time. And also I did buff its damage and its speed, and also its health a little bit, just to help him with some matchups, and added a critical impact and a defense shattering impact. Which, well, actually I didn't add the defense shattering impact, I added the fierce strike as well as speed reduction, and you pretty much know the story. It got a high bounce, it no longer has a precise bounce. And also the new distracting impact only has 1 cooldown now, as well as the distraction went. He also got the 2 immunities. So let's go to Darwinopterus, which is another fierce creature. And of course, because Darwinopterus is like the epic version of the Morphodon, I also gave it a flock. So with this big change that he got, his basic stats, only his speed changed a little bit, and apart from that, the abilities stay almost the same, except for two new ones, which is Alert Swarm, and also a Dangerous Swarm Wounding, which a Dangerous Swarm Wounding, it's basically a little wound. It's basically that, but it doesn't attack. And you might think that this is kind of garbage, because like if it doesn't attack, doesn't that mean that it does less damage? And yes, you are right, but you have to keep in mind that this attack it only bleeds the target, it doesn't attack. Which means that if you, for example, fight against a creature that has a counter, that counter of that creature won't be activated if you have a dangerous swarm wounding. So in some situations, this ability is actually better than like little wound, but only in like really unique scenarios where you don't really find often. So you know, I don't know, I just wanted to try something new. It's not the best ability, I could have done better honestly, but it's fine, it's good enough. And of course the immunities, another first creature, this time with Dimodactylus actually. Dimodactylus is actually quite good right now, and I kinda nerfed it in a way, but at the same time he also got indirectly buff from all the creatures just changing in general. So Demodactylus, I mean the class change, also it no longer has the cleansing soup, so it has like a normal soup this time. Just I don't know, like I don't really like cleansing soup because it kind of forces you to play in a way where you abuse a mechanic in the game, and I don't really like cleansing soup, and that's kind of the reason why I changed the cleansing soup, so it's more fair in a way. And also extend a critical strike, and that's basic. I mean, of course the immunities to speed and all of that stuff, it's also there. So Diplodocus, another dinosaur that got a big change recently, and I think he's like really good now. So yeah, Diplodactylus or Diplocaulus, no, Diplodocus. So Diplodocus damage, it got a huge damage nerf from 1500 to 1200, and that's because he had way too much damage for like a resilient. Like, I'm not saying that a resilient cannot have that much damage, but just for Diplodocus, like he already has like the biggest HP in the game, and he also has like 1500 damage, so you know, it was a little bit too much. I kind of had to nerf its damage just by a little bit. The critical chance got increased, so I guess that's good. And also I added a decelerating rampage and a normal decelerating rampage, and the thing is that I basically did this before the 2.14 update came around, and in that update, in this recent update, he got the group decelerating rampage. So yeah, I just changed it to a decelerating rampage. Like he didn't even change it, but I didn't want it to change it back. And also the another reason I did that is because Diplodocus will have some problems. Well, I mean it's problems, but he will basically be able to counter certain first creatures, some epic first creatures, if he had a group decelerating rampage. So that's like the main reason why I changed to a normal decelerating rampage, just because he was a little bit too powerful. So yeah, I just did that, and also remove the swap in remove the stun immunity. I don't think he has. Oh no, he does have a stun immunity. Yeah, I did remove the stun immunity. Again, I wasn't like he didn't have any stun immunity. And yeah, speed reduction from 100% to 50%, because let's be honest, even with like 100% speed reduction, while you have 100 for speed. That's not really gonna do much. It's kind of useless. So, you know, I mean, at least it can decelerate, I guess. Let's go to Dodo. Okay, Dodo. So, with the Dodo, I had to change his HP just by a little bit because it was a little bit too much, and also the damage was quite nerfed actually. Because he will be able to, believe it or not, he will be able to kill carbon enemies, which is a resilient, and that shouldn't be the case. That's also why I changed the Fightless Strike to a normal distraction, just because Fightless Strike, it does pierce armor, which kind of like that's not really something a cunning should do. So, you know, because of that, I'm like, you know, that shouldn't be a thing that happens, and yeah, I just had to remove that. And also I added the well, I guess it's not a new ability, the protective alert now no longer has the vulnerability effect, because again, it's a cunning shouldn't be able to do something like that. So I just had to change it to 100% distraction when you're secure, and when you're threatened, it's still a 50% distraction. So there's that. And of course had to remove the speed reduction, also remove the rend resistance. I could have honestly let him keep the rend resistance, but I don't know, I just wanted it to remove it. It's not a big deal, he's still good enough to counter every fierce creature, so it's okay. Crit reduction changed, and all of those two abilities added, and that is Dodo. Edaphosaurus also got well changed, just so it now, you know, it can be killed by a cunning, and also it can now kill every resilient. So the damage got highly buffed. Added a defense shattering impact and a defense shattering rampage. I'm pretty sure you can guess why I did that. And yeah, remove distraction resistance, rending resistance, bleeding to 50%, and swap prevention to 50%, and everything else is still the same. So, Edmontoguanodon, which is one of the, well, I mean, when you compare it to the Nantorex and Hedros, looks is probably not the best one, but whatever. So, Edmontoguanodon, yeah, he, like every other Hedrosaurus, he was just really bad. But at least he had like a group resilient impact, so he could actually do stuff. But still, even then, he still was kind of garbage. So I did change it a little bit. He got a normal resilient impact this time. However, he can now actually slow down the opponent with superiority strike, and he also gets something new that I'm really proud of. A dizzy regeneration. I'm so proud of this name for this ability, just because it makes sense. It cleanses, it heals, and it also gives you 100% chance to stun. It just makes sense. The name makes sense, unlike some abilities in the game. So yeah, dizzy regeneration. It cleanses, it heals 2 times. It has and it also targets the fastest creature, and it has 100% chance to stun the opponent. So when you get this heal, you will be able to, if you're slower than your opponent, which you probably will be, yeah, you will be able to get a stun and also heal yourself, which is really good. 2 times, by the way, with 2000 HP, which is still really good. And yeah, and he also has the heal and run, which he actually used to have this ability back when he was back a long time ago. But as many of the creatures got changed, he also got changed, and he lost this ability. So yeah, heal and run makes a comeback. As you can see, it's basically, the name basically describes the ability, so I don't really have to explain it. And he also got swap and heal, just to, you know, just why not. And resistances, as you can see, swap prevention doesn't make any sense why he has swap prevention. It made sense when he used to have heal and run, but right now it doesn't really make sense why he has swap prevention, so you know, whatever. And also he's resilient after all, so again, it makes no sense. I guess I didn't really thought about the stats. So the HP got a really big buff, as you can see, which is like the most important thing of Edmondo Guanodon is the HP. The damage got a little bit nerfed, but he's still good enough. So don't worry about that. And that's basically it. Let's go to Antelochops now. Nothing much changed. I guess the speed is the biggest thing that changed to him, because like, let's be like, how did this creature get so fast? Like, not even Antelodon has like 124 speed, let alone 126, so it makes no sense why he is so fast in the first place. So yeah, I just changed that to 116 speed, which is more reasonable, and that's kinda it really. Early Kogama, another cunning. He got the changes that a cunning needs. Replaced one of its abilities with a high bounce, because precise bounce, you know, where does it really come from? It doesn't really make sense. And also, like, precise bounce, it's kind of like a weird fusion between resilient and cunning. I'm not saying that some cunnings can have precise bounce, for example blue, but I don't know, it feels like so many, I think I said this, but I feel like so many creatures, especially cunnings, start to have dodge nullifying abilities, which is kind of annoying. Else, I guess the speed got nerfed, because Earlycosaurus also got the health, the speed nerfed a little bit, so it just made sense for Earlykogama to do the same. And yeah, I guess that's it for him. Let's go to Earlycosaurus. So Earlycosaurus got a huge HP buff for like a cunning, I guess. Of course, the speed, just like Earlycosaurus Gen 2, it got nerfed. Damage is still around the same. I added a speed up distracting strike, which is something new. It's basically like a cunning speed up strike, but it's a distraction that has a speed up, and it's a strike. That's basically what it is. So yeah, this is Earlycosaurus, as you can see right here, and also I gave it a revenge distracting impact, because you know, why not? He kinda needs distraction actually, because one of his problems is that he didn't really have any good abilities where he will be able to distract. He had the distracting strike, but that wasn't really enough, so I just had to give it something more, and yeah, that's basically Earlycosaurus. Eucradoceros, yeah, I didn't, nothing much really. So yeah, let's go to Gorgosaurus, or Gorgosuchus actually. So health, I don't really understand why they decided to give Gorgosuchus and Postosuchus so much health but so little attack. The one thing that was really good with Gorgosuchus is that he will be able to do so much damage back in the day. He was like the damage powerhouse before he got changed. So I don't really understand why he got changed that way, but yeah. So basically that means that I nerfed his HP, but I also gave him a huge amount of damage. And also, of course, he still has the group ferocity strike, so when you apply that, you also get so much damage more. And yeah, he also has the new versions of the first abilities, and also added a 50% stun, just so he's just a little bit better. And that is it for Gorgosuchus. Griposuchus. With Griposuchus, I guess the biggest problem was that he didn't do enough damage, and I just added a ferocious impact, because after all, he is a crocodile. And the first thing when I think of a crocodile in this game, it's a ferocious impact. Hust Eagle right here didn't really get a big change. I mean, obviously he got the change in evasive strike and distracting impact and whatever, but apart from that, I guess the HP is the biggest win for him. And he also gets a swapping dodge just because why not? He is after all a cunning. Indominus Rex Gen 2, okay, this is interesting. This is something that I've been waiting for this, honestly, for like an hour or 3 hours. So, Indominus Rex, you'll probably notice that I changed the cloak a little bit, and the reason why is because cloak now completely got changed, and now the evasion aspect and the damage effect, the evasion effect and the damage effect are now separate, two separate effects. And this is because resilience are able to nullify the cloak, and when they're able to nullify the cloak, that also means that they're able to nullify the damage increase or whatever it is, the extra damage that you get with the cloak. But when you think about it logically, that doesn't really make sense, because that's not what a resilient should do. A cunning should be able to nullify the damage increase, but not a resilient. Resilient should nullify only the evasion part of a cloak. So this is basically what I did here. This way, resilience can no longer remove the damage increase from the cloak and can only nullify the evasion. But if you want to remove the damage increase, just use a cunning. That's the best way to counter cloak. Well, the second best way, I guess the best way is to have a resilient cunning, which can also nullify the cloak and the evasion, which can nullify the evasion and the damage increase at the same time, because it's a resilient cunning. So yeah, that's basically the biggest change. This is probably like the biggest ability change that I can think of. So yeah, that is interesting. Also, he now has a cunning strike, because a definitive strike, why can he nullify dodge? That doesn't really make sense, so I just nullify that. I just changed that because it makes more sense to have a cunning strike. And yeah, that's basically like that. That's basically the biggest change that he got. He had a little bit of he was kind of too weak, so I had to give him, like, how do I say this? I guess Kentrosaurus, it's the glass cannon version of the Tujangosaurus, because Tujangosaurus has more HP but not enough damage output, while Kentrosaurus has a little bit more damage output, but he's also, now that I think about it, that doesn't really make sense. Anyway, you get what I'm trying to say. Kentrosaurus, it's more of a dinosaur that does damage. So with Kentrosaurus, I had to give it a shielded strike, because he will struggle against some cunning creatures, and I just had to do that just because he would otherwise die to a cunning. And of course he gets the new Tagomizer, and what else he gets? I guess the resistances, as you can see below, and the speed got also nerfed by a lot, but that's just because he will otherwise be able to counter some fierce creatures, because he will be too fast. And also he got 15% armor, which should help him a little bit to absorb more damage. And yeah, that's basically Kentrosaurus. Let's see, what did I change here? So 117 speed. Yeah, he is definitely a lot slower, but that doesn't really affect him because he has a medium cunning counter. Something that also the Gen 2 has. And that's kinda it, really. He still has group distraction, so even though he's slower than most cunnings, he can still distract. He can still distract first the opponent or whatever. So that is good. That is definitely good. Oh, Mayazaura. This is an interesting one. Mayazaura has to be like the weirdest dinosaur ever. Like, its stats make no sense. So, Mayazaura, it's quite a glass cannon. He can do a lot of damage with instant rampage, but he also only has 3000 HP, which for a Hadrosaurus, it's so little HP for a Hadrosaurus. That's like giving a Patosaurus 4000 HP. Like there is something wrong if you give Mayazaurus this less HP. That's not right. Obviously, I had to change that, as you can see right here. The speed also like way too fast. I don't understand why they made it so fast. It makes no sense, but whatever. Just ignore that. Precise deteriorating strike. It's a new ability as well. And yeah, it's basically what it says. It still has the instant rampage, and I also added a greater emergency heal and a alert swap in stun. So this time you can swap in Mayazaura and get a stun. And also after you get the stun, if you're lucky, you can use an instant rampage, which this actually reminds me, like, I think Mayazaura used to be like this when he was first introduced. He also had like the alert. Well, he didn't have alert. He had a normal swapping stun, and yeah, they took that out from him for whatever reason, and yeah, I just added the better version of that. This is Mayazaura. Let's go to Majunda Boa, which is a resilient despite it having a ferocious strike, which doesn't make any sense, but okay. So with Majunda Boa, health from 3600 to almost 4000 basically, and I gave it a persistent ferocious strike, and then I removed and added some resistances. I also changed some resistances, and that's kinda it with Majunda Boa. Nothing that interesting. Megalogaya, again, nothing that interesting. And I guess the armor is the biggest thing, and that's basically it. So, Megalotops, the class change from wildcard to a resilient cunning, because you know it makes like even the current move set of Megalotops makes no sense why it's a wildcard, because he should be a cunning resilient, but like every one of its ability, like where is something that pierces or that shatters shield? Like I don't really see. I mean, I guess armor piercing. Also starting from what resilient strike, determined strike with resilient strike, which is the same thing but it doesn't distract the opponent. Distracting shield, also it's a new ability actually. Funny story actually. Well, story. Funny fact actually. Testa Cornibius, he used to have this exact ability right here. He used to have a distracting shield, which you know, it's quite interesting why they decided to like just scrap it and replace it with a stupid ability like cleansing decelerating impact. I mean, it's a good ability, but it's kind of stupid and it's kind of unoriginal. So yeah, anyways, let's go down to Instant Rumble, which is the new version of Instant Rumble, the one that I made. It still has a cautious rampage. The counter got changed to a maximal counter, to a normal counter that doesn't pierce armor. It's like 34%, like it's basically the same thing. It's basically like I didn't even change it, so whatever. Added some bleed, added some distraction, just a little bit, added a critical reduction, and yes, that is it for Megalatops. Quite a big change now that I think about it. Let's go to Megastotherium. With it may not have the same HP as Andrewsarchus, but it has way more damage than him. Speed, he's also way faster. And also I added something new, a critical strike, which is basically a critical impact but a strike. and also added a ferocious bite, which is basically a defense shattering impact plus a little wound, and that's basically what a ferocious bite is, as you can see by those effects right here. And it still has rending and all of that, and added a vulnerability immunity. And that is it for Megastiterium. Monolophosaurus. With Monolophosaurus, the biggest change here, I think it's the HP, because it seemed quite weird how Dilophosaurus had 3600 HP, but Monolophosaurus, which is like the same size as Dilophosaurus, that seemed a little bit suspicious. So I just kind of had to change it just so it makes more sense. So added a cunning impact instead of a distracting rampage. This is just so it's different from a Dilophosaurus. And yeah, that is for Monolophosaurus. Nodopathosaurus, another hybrid, another resilient. Her HP got definitely buffed, and he now has the impact, the normal impact. He no longer has the rampage because, you know, I gave it a group decelerating impact instead of a strike, and I also gave it an impact instead of a taunting rampage, so it's kind of like, it's a fair trade-off. Not only that, he also gets a counter, which he actually used to have a counter, a medium counter, before he was changed. And I kind of miss the counter of Nodopathosaurus, if I gotta be honest. So I just added that back. And yeah, that is it for Nodopathosaurus, Oranosaurus this time. Or I remember Oranosaurus being a really good dinosaur. He had like a stunning rampage, he had an impact and run, so you could just swap out. There was no on escape back then, so yeah, really good times. Oranosaurus, yeah, I just had to like give it a way to be able to counter cunning, so I gave it a superiority strike, a superiority impact, a group heal just to help him a little bit, because it's better than a lesser group heal, and also a medium resilient counter and some resistances. Ovilophosaurus, he doesn't have a flock, unlike Oviraptor, which has a flock of 2. So there is something weird about this guy, is that it has a group cunning impact, and the fact is that group cunning impact doesn't have a cooldown whatsoever, which makes absolutely no sense. How many times did I say that it makes no sense? So this is why the game is so unbalanced, because of stupid stuff like this. Because why would you give a group cunning impact, which is an impact after all, and it's a group impact which targets all of the opponents, and you also don't give it a cooldown? Like, are you actually stupid? Why would you give something like this? Why would you do something like this? It makes no sense. This has to be the most unbalanced ability in the game ever. Like, it makes absolutely no sense. It's so stupid. And I just had to change it. I just had to. I'm sorry, I just had to change it. I just had to change it because, like, I want to make this game balanced, and I also want to make this game enjoyable as well. So yeah, I just changed that because, you know, it makes no sense. Also, it has the new distracting rampage and a sidestep instead of a critical impact, because, you know, that doesn't really make sense where he got the critical impact from. And I see critical impact as a first only ability, but I mean, it's not like other creatures can also use it, I guess, but I don't know, it doesn't seem right for Ovilophosaurus to have a critical impact. So I just change it with something normal like sidestep. And yeah, also I removed a lot of resistances and immunities right here because first of all, it's a cunning. Again, I don't understand. There is something that Ludia wants to try, I think, but it doesn't work. Like, why would you give cunnings speed immunity? It makes no freaking sense. It's so stupid. So yeah, I don't know, I can't deal with that. I just had to. Okay, let's go to the next one because I'm starting to explode. Pachycephalosaurus, something more relaxing. So Pachy, yeah, got a little bit of change. He did a little bit too much damage, so I had to change it. So he will actually be able to like kill some first creatures with decelerating impact and then a rampage. And so I just had to change that so it's not too powerful. Decelerating strike to just so I can help him to counter Cunnings a little bit better. And yeah, swapping headbutt as well, which is something which is like the new version of mine. And resistances, obviously those two. And let's go to the next one, Postimetrodon, which is like a cheaper version of Gorgosuchus. However, Postimetrodon does have more resistances than Gorgosuchus, and it also has I don't know if it has more damage output, because with a group ferocity strike and a group and like a critical impact, I think you will be able to actually do more damage than like with a rampage with a Gorgosuchus, or like around the same damage. Maybe. I'm not too sure about it, but whatever. So yeah, it's basically just another version of Gorgosuchus, but he is faster. Not He actually does have more damage, but he doesn't have a rampage. So he only has like a critical impact, which if you combine it with a ferocity strike, you will be able to do a lot of damage. Even if the opponent has like 33% armor, you will still be able to do a ton of damage. So yeah, that is basically Postimetrodon. Just like I don't know if which one is better. I think Postimetrodon is just a little bit better because he is more immune to stuff than Gorgosuchus, as you can see right here. So I guess he's better, but I don't really know. I guess it kind of depends. Proceratomimus. Damage, way too much damage for something like this. The abilities are basically the same. And also removed the nullifying counter. And also the swapping nullification, because like swapping nullification has to be like the worst swapping abilities ever. Also, it still gets the new evasive stance. Is this the first time I've talked about evasive stance? I think it is. I'm not sure actually. So yeah, evasive stance, as you can see, it got quite a buff actually. So the one problem that I had with evasive stance is that this is kind of the same situation with an evasive strike or an evasive impact. Most of the times you kind of put yourself at risk and you don't really get much out of it, because yeah, it's good if you get a dodge, but if you don't get the dodge, you pretty much wasted a turn going for evasive stance. However, this time when you do use evasive stance, you actually also distract a little bit of the damage of the opponent, so no matter what you do, you will have better chances of surviving when going for evasive stance compared to the normal evasive stance. So yeah, and anything else not really interesting. Let's go to the next one. Pteranodon is a fierce, and he's still a fierce. Again, nothing really changed about him. Yeah, I guess only the immunities are different. And that's kind of it. He has more damage, a little bit more damage, and that's kind of it. Porotaurus, another wild card, changed to a pure first this time. So the way I see it is that the Porotaurus, it's kind of like a better version of Purolith. However, with Purolith, you are actually just a little bit faster. However, you don't have as much HP as a Porotaurus, and also you have a cleansing strike, and an instant strike, an instant binding strike, which is also a new ability. As the name suggests, it's a binding strike. It makes the target unable to swap for 3 turns. Obviously, it has the new first strike and an extended critical strike because instant distraction doesn't really make sense for the pure fierce. Of course, some resistances, and yeah, back to the Purotaurus, back to Purolith and Purotaurus. Yeah, I guess Purotaurus is more offensive because Purolith, it's definitely more defensive because it has that heal, which will help him survive for a much longer period of time. But with Purotaurus, you get to do more damage because of the first impact. It also increases the damage, and also the extended critical strike. You also have instant binding strike. So yeah, basically it's just a more offensive version of Prolith. So Pyroraptor. Okay, so like any other really small raptor, I also added a flock just because it made sense. If I was to add a flock to Velociraptor, Pyroraptor should also have a flock. Not only that, he is also like around the same size as the Velociraptor in real life, or at least the speculation is that he was almost the same size as a Velociraptor, so yeah, it just makes sense. So it gets a huge HP nerf, but that doesn't really matter because it gets a flock, which is really powerful. And of course it gets the alert bounce, a little bit less damage, speed is still the same, and everything else apart from him having a flock and some resistances, it's kind of the same. So yeah, I guess it's a big change, but only if you focus on the flock aspect. So with Rajasaurus, again another concavenator like dinosaurs. I didn't really want to make him similar to concavenator. I think I say this thing a lot, but that's kind of true because there are so many dinosaurs in this game that are almost like really similar. So yeah, I guess Rajasaurus, it's kind of like the Purolith and Purotaurus thing. Purosaurus is more of an defensive. Well, I mean, it's not really a defensive, but it has more HP, can take more hits than a concavenator. And yeah, it can still dish out a decent amount of damage with those abilities. And yeah, that's kinda Rajasaurus, I guess. Okay, Rinchenia is the next one. So with Rinchenia, it's kind of like Oviraptor, like a better version of Oviraptor. So I gave it a flock, as you can see. A flock of 2. It doesn't have a flock of 3, it has a flock of 2. This is a mistake, so just ignore this. And yeah, this is basically Rinchenia right now. Has more HP, but also has a flock. Less damage, less speed as well. And it also has something new, which is alert devious impact, which is basically a devious strike, but it's an impact and also has alert on it. So with alert, you get the same effect that you get with a normal devious strike, but when it's threatened, when you have 50% HP basically, because it has a flock of 2, it gets a 100% chance to dodge. It increases the critical chance by 20% for 2 turns, 2 attacks, and it reduces the damage for 25% for 2 turns for attacks, but only attacks 1 time. So it's just a weaker version of the secure state, I guess. So yeah, I also added a collision. I didn't really need to add this ability, but I don't know, for some reason I decided to add it anyway. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't make him overpowered, so you know, it's whatever. And as well as some resistances. These 2 resistances are changed, and these are 2 new ones. So that is it for Winchenia. Sarcorex is fierce resilient and not pure resilient. Nothing much with Sarcoidexes, didn't change anything. The one thing that Sarcoidexes didn't really have is the ability to shatter shield. I think back in the day he used to be able to pierce armor, but now he's not able to do that anymore. So because of that, I gave it a definite strike because remember he is a first resilient, so he can have a definitive strike because he can nullify shields and dodge, and also he can bypass armor. And yeah, he's basically just a mix between resilient and fierce. And the rest of the moveset is still the same. Speed reduction is now to 100%. The health is a little bit nerfed, but also he has a little bit more damage. So yeah, there's that with Sarcoidexes. Scaphotator. Okay, this is a big one because Scaphotator has to be one of the weaker creatures in the game. He is really terrible. Like, out of all the super hybrids that exist in the game, he has to be the worst one. I made him good, of course, because I want him to be good. A cunning fierce, that means that he can have something like a daring strike, which remember it's the new version of daring strike. So the only difference with this new version of daring strike is that it reduces the critical chance by 50%, which the normal one I don't think it does that. So that's the only change. The speed, it has been nerfed. However, it gets just a little bit more HP and a little bit more attack, and it gets something that he really needs, and that is a wounding counter. So even though he might still be really weak, at least he can do a lot of damage to your opponent as long as he's not immune to wounding, to bleed basically. And even if you are in a scenario where you have low HP, you can always go for emergency heal to get some HP back. And of course it gets no escape, because after all Scaphognathus also has no escape, so it just made sense to give him that. And of course it gets some resistances to help him counter certain dinosaurs better. And yeah, it's basically just a much better version of Scaphotator, of the normal one. So I'm really happy about that. Scorpius Rex Gen 2 didn't really change much. The one thing that I changed, and it's the biggest thing out of all of them, is that now it has a minor rending counter. So a minor rending counter, it's actually a new ability. Well, it's kinda new. And this ability actually was introduced in an update. I don't remember which one, but it was never implemented into any creatures. So yeah, basically I just wanted to give it a try to see how it is. And yeah, the one reason why I wanted to give it a rending counter is that he kind of had some problems with some matchups. And also, he is a hybrid out of Carnotaurus, and Carnotaurus has rending, so it kind of made sense to also give him just a little bit of rending, just a little bit, not too much. And yeah, that is Scorpius Rex, and nothing else really changed about him, so let's go to the next one, Scutosaurus. Yeah, I got a huge HP nerf, because that's way too much HP for something that's not even like 10 meters big or 10 meters long. Speed reduction, yeah, I guess this is one of the few creatures that got nerfed. But I mean, he also is now immune, or at least somewhat almost immune, 75% resistant to distractions. Let's go to Secodanthosaurus, and this is what I was talking about when I said that fierce creatures and resilient creatures can also have flock creatures. And I think Secodanthosaurus, well, I mean, actually, Dimorphodon, it's the first one that has had a flock. But Secodanthosaurus, yeah, I guess it's a weird one to put a flock, to give it a flock, because when I looked at the size of Secodanthosaurus, I was I thought he was a little bit bigger, to be honest, but then I found out that he's actually kind of small. I think he's like 3 meters long, maybe even smaller than that. So yeah, he is small enough to have a flock, and I only gave it a flock of 2 because a flock of 3 would be a little bit too much. So I think a flock of 2 will be enough for Secodanthosaurus. And yeah, that basically changes all of Secodanthosaurus. And so the HP got changed a lot, but he does get a flux, so he can absorb damage better if you think about it. Added a new first strike, the new first impact, and of course an alert takedown, which is something. So break shields, it's kind of like a normal takedown, but when it gets threatened, it transforms into a normal impact. So yeah, that's basically it. And of course had to remove the distraction resistance because it made no sense why he would have something like that. Sinoceratops' health got hugely increased. Also the damage a little bit increased. Critical 15%, not a big change, but it's better than 5%. And of course the new swap in Stunning Strike and the distraction and the crit reduction immunities, as you can see right here. Let's go to Smilodon. He got a little... I definitely had to change Smilodon because he will be able to counter Stygimoloch, and that shouldn't be the case, and because of that I had to like change it. Also Stygimoloch as well. So what? It has a little bit less speed. It's not a big change. The damage, however, it's a big change. Also the new version of Evasive Strike, and of course the resistances, the immunities to swap prevention and bleed get added to Smilodon. Sonorosaurus. What is Sonorosaurus? I guess Sonorosaurus, it's another big sauropod, makes its way to the reworking list. So a small shield encounter, something that Fukuisaurus has, a new ability, and I guess the resistances also got a little bit changed. But that's kind of it really. With Sonorosaurus, nothing too crazy. The Spinosaurus Gen 2, so it got a huge HP buff. Speed, it did get a little bit nerfed, but let's be honest, we kinda saw that coming. Critical, 20%, I think it's good, especially for a first. And the abilities also got changed, so he gets a new first strike, gets a wounding impact and a wounding rampage, and of course some resistances. So yeah, he will definitely be a much better bleeder this time, because he will be able to do more bleed and also more pure damage, so that is always good for a first creature. Spinotaraptor. Spinotaraptor, it's a really weird one because it's weird because Spinotaraptor originated from Jurassic World the game, and in Jurassic World the game he has the animation of a raptor, but in this game they decided to go with the animation of Spinosaurus, which is really weird because you have this really big creature, but that creature is also really weak because it has like, it doesn't even have 3000 HP, it has below that, so that's just so weird. So I had to change that obviously, so it makes more sense. Health, it still keeps like the animation of Spinosaurus, like I'm not gonna change the animation of a dinosaur. And yeah, it has 4000 health, which is more like reasonable. Damage a little bit nerfed, speed definitely got nerfed. And the moveset got changed, but not too drastically. So distracting impact of the new one, obviously, and a defense shattering impact, so now he's able to counter resilience together with gashing wound. And also I gave it a cunning strike because having just a normal strike on a hybrid, it's kinda stupid. And also he gets a no escape and some resistance. So Stegosaurus from a cunning fierce to a resilient. Why would he be a fierce? Like, I don't understand how he is fierce in any way, because he has a critical impact. That's not really fierce, you know. Like, if he had something that shattered armor, then yes. So because of this, I also obviously had to change it to a pure resilient with a flock of 2 actually, as you can see right here. So it gets a shielding strike, it still keeps the instant charge, and it gets a taunting resilient group impact, and also it has a stunning alert. And that's basically it, I guess. He also gets a little bit more speed, and yeah, that's basically it too. So yeah, he has a flock now. Anyways, let's go to Stegoceratops. So Stegoceratops was a really good creature, honestly. So yeah, I did buff him a little bit, as you can see right here. What did I change? So the health, obviously I had to change it because it made no sense why it had so little HP. And I guess the moveset I didn't really change. However, now he does have a decelerating impact instead of a group decelerating impact. I'm not sure if, I don't think he used to have that ability when I first remade him. I think he got this ability in the 2.14 update, I'm pretty sure, because I don't remember him having this. And it gets the impact version of Greater Stunning Strike. So yeah, he's just a much better dinosaur right now. Let's go to the next one, Strutiomimus. Okay. Strutiomimus, like the epic equivalent to an Orthomimus, I guess. That's basically what Strutiomimus is. And yeah, nothing much. I guess he doesn't have like a rampage and run, but he does have a cunning rampage and also group distraction, just in case if you find a strategy where you can use it in like a raid. So yeah, Stygimoloch, as I said with Smilodon, he had to change a lot, by the way. I think Stygimoloch is like the most tested creature that I've done, just because of how, I don't know, just because of how many matchups he had where he would either lose or win against a cunning or a fierce. So yeah, I just had to change that. And yeah, this is it. Basically all of the changes are right here. And let's go to the next one, Tilocotator. So for Tilocotator, another wildcard. Why are there so many wildcards? Like, jeez. Anyway, so yeah, it got changed to a pure fierce because that's what he should be. And yeah, that means that he no longer has superiority strike, which sucks, I know, but it is what it is. And he has a minor rending counter, or a minor rending attack. And also it has a new maiming wound, so I did change a little bit how maiming wound works. And the only change is that now you get to swap prevent the target for 2 turns, which it's like a better. If I don't know, why. I guess I wanted to make it a little bit different from Little Wound, and that's kind of why I wanted to give it something new. So yeah, that is it. Of course, it no longer has a swapping distraction because it makes no sense now. And yeah, that is it for Tilocotator. Titanoboa. Okay, so Titanoboa, it's an interesting one. So Titanoboa was a little bit like too powerful for a resilient. He will be able to kill almost any fierce creature, unless it's something with bleed, and is also immune to disarration, which not many are. So yeah, I had to change it a little bit. So the damage was kind of like the biggest problem with Titanoboa. He did way too much damage, and I just had to change that. And also the HP a little bit changed. Decelerating strike, it no longer has a resilient strike, but it doesn't really matter since he does have a precise rampage. So if he wants to go through dodge, he can just use a precise rampage. And of course no longer has drop prevention. And yeah, that's basically it. Titanoboa. Trudon, another raptor, another one of those dinosaurs. So kind of like Raptor, but this time he gets a new ability, which is Alert, Debilitating, and Flee, which, as the name suggests, it reduces the damage, also the critical chance, and it automatically swaps you out. And when it gets threatened, it gets priority, and it still swaps you out, but you do less damage this time. So that's that, I guess. And because this is also like another Hedgeosaurus, I just kind of had to, you know, to make him a little bit better, to make him good enough so he can actually counter what he needs to counter. And I gave it a group taunting shields instead of a group ferocity strike, and also a medium resilient counter, as well as some resistances. And what do we have here? Oh, Tyrannosaurus Rex, the legend. We finally reached it after like 4 hours. So he is finally here, and he is definitely really good. At least this version is. So yeah, with the big change to first abilities, obviously I had to just change every ability with the new version of the first abilities. And also its speed, like 102 speed, like come on, that's a little bit ridiculous. That's like, he is the T-Rex after all. He is not the fastest, but he is way faster than an Apatosaurus or an Argentinosaurus. So like it just made sense for him to have around 108 speed, 109 maybe. So yeah, and of course I also had to give him some immunities to speed, vulnerability, 75% resistant, and also a taunting, just because why not. And yeah, this is T-Rex, I guess. Much better. This will definitely be a much better version of the current T-Rex. He will be way better. And yeah, that is T-Rex. Let's go to Velociraptor, which I think is the last one if I'm not... oh no, okay, we have like 2 more. Okay, so Velociraptor, it's like... yeah, I didn't really change anything, as you can see, because I guess he is the most balanced creature in the game, because I literally had to change nothing about him. He is good as he is. He's, dare I say, perfect. So let's move on to something that's not perfect, like Woolly Mammoth. So Woolly Mammoth being a resilient, obviously I had to get rid of the persistent ferocious strike. It just didn't make any sense for him to have that. And replace it with a wrong defensive strike, which should have him absorb a lot of damage. And also he has a group resilient rampage, which is basically, as the name suggests, it's a resilient rampage that targets every opponent. The last dinosaur on our list is the Woolly Rhino. So, Woolly Rhino, it's definitely somewhat of a controversial dinosaur. I don't know if he's that controversial anymore, but he is still a little bit, I guess. I didn't really know what to do with Woolly Rhino, because I don't know, it's kind of weird seeing, like, you have Elasmotherium, Brontolasmus, Brontotherium that don't have any stunning, and then you have Woolly Rhino that has stunning, which just seemed a little bit weird. So yeah, I didn't really know what to do with him. I still kept you know, he can still stun, but in a different way this time. So health, he has way too much health for him. I don't think, you know, even Brontotherium has, like, Brontotherium, I think like out of all the rhinos in the game, I'm pretty sure Woolly Rhino, it's like the smallest one out of them all. So it just made sense for him to also have like a small HP. And yeah, that's, I guess also the damage got changed, speed all still around the same. The armor got changed to 20%, so yes, he did get a health nerfed, but he did get more armor this time. Depending on how you look at it, it might be better or it might be worse. And it also gets a 20% critical chance. And I added a group, well, not a group, a greater stunning impact. So yes, that he can still stun, a superiority rampage, and it gets a swapping resilience strike, something that Dracorex used to have before I replaced it with the swapping headbutt, I think. So yeah, swapping resilience strike, and what else? I guess I did remove the bleed resistance, which, like, again, it's a resilient, he shouldn't have that, and added a distraction immunity and as well as critical reduction immunity. And that is it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video of the Jurassic World Alive rework, or whatever I end up calling this video. This is definitely gonna be a part 1 because I cannot do this longer. I feel like my throat is gonna explode any minute. So I'll see you guys in the next part. Goodbye.